I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and the time is 5:31. The board will now convene into open session. The time is 6:44. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. We wish to emphasize that this is a business meeting of the board, and while those in attendance may disagree about issues, it is our expectation that everyone will conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner. Disruptions to this meeting by anyone will not be tolerated. In the event any person or group disrupts the meeting, a warning will be given to stop any disruptive behavior. Anyone persisting in disruptive behavior will be removed from the meeting. The board may also call a recess in the event of persistent disruptions so that individuals who engage in disruptions can be removed. It is our intent to conduct the meeting in an orderly fashion. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. A, Jackson Keller Elementary. Ms. Nicolai.
Good evening, Madam President Grona, NEISD board members, Dr. Micah, Superintendent of Schools, executive staff, and guests. It is our pleasure to be here with you representing Jackson Keller Elementary, a Title I extended year school. Leading us in the invocation is Jane Lowry, a 5th grade student with the Lowry family. Please stand at this time. The Lowry family, please stand. Jane is being joined by her mother, Emily Lowry, her grandmother, Lisa Lowry, her grandfather, Michael Lowry. Jane is a dual language student who recognizes the importance of being bilingual. She has been a part of the dual language program since kindergarten. At Jackson Keller, Jane is a hyper-accelerated math student, a gifted and talented student, and is a member of the choir and safety patrols. Her extracurricular activity is gymnastics, which keeps her motivated to always give her best and never give up. As Jane completes her final year of elementary, she reflects on her favorite memory. She states, "My favorite memory is when I got to loop with my classmates and teacher from 4th to 5th grade." Jane is now going to read a poem to you as the invocation. Jane, will you please come up?
My poem is called Dare to Dream. Close your eyes and let your imagination fly away. See a picture of where you wish to be one day. Let the colors of your heart take command to paint the picture of your dream and place it in your hand. Hold on tightly, nurture it, but allow it room to grow. When you reach your dream, open your hand and let it go. Close your eyes and search for another, caring for it as before. Never stop searching, achieving, and letting go for that's what dreams are for. En español, mi poema se llama Atrévate a soñar. Cierra los ojos y deja tu imaginación volar. Ve una imagen de donde deseas estar algún día. Deja que los colores de tu corazón tome el mando para pintar la imagen de tu sueño y ponerlo en tu mano. Agárralo fuerte y nútrelo, pero dejarle espacio para crecer. Cuando alcanzas tu sueño, abre tu mano y déjalo ir. Cierra los ojos y busca otro. Cuidándolo como antes, nunca dejes de buscar, lograr y dejar ir, porque para esos están los sueños.
Thank you, Jane. Now, I would like the family of Adriana Salazar to please stand. Adriana is a 5th grade student who has been at Jackson Keller since kindergarten. She is being joined by her mother, Angela De Leon. Adriana participates in the following extracurricular activities: choir, patrols, student council, and strings. She is also a hyper-accelerated math student. Adriana is currently our Jackson Keller Student Council president. Adriana states that her favorite memory is leading the school parades when they celebrate events such as the Kinder ABC Parade and when the Lee High School Band comes to celebrate our accomplishments. Adriana also participated in the Lee Cheer Camp and performed at a Lee football game. Adriana, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. Jane and Adriana, will you please come forward because we have a certificate for you. Mr. Leos is going to, and we would like to take a picture with Dr. Micah and Mr. Leos. You both did a very nice job.
Wonderful job. I love your yellow shoes.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the families for being here. You are welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go home. Good night. Appreciate y'all being here. Item 6, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies, 2, a personnel action, 3, a student disciplinary matter, 4, a complaint about a particular student. 5, or pending litigation. If you signed up to speak on a specific agenda item, you will be called up when the board reaches that item. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Ms. Huey. I would just do, yeah, matters from the floor.
Number 4.
Did they give you numbers when you signed up today? Okay, 4.
Deanna Fensel, good evening. I'm here to talk about mandates and something that I read recently in the news that's concerning to me. I read that the current administration and AG appear to be colluding with the National Association of School Boards and Teachers Unions to politically weaponize the DOJ to investigate parents who voice their concerns and do not conform or agree with local school board mandates or curriculum and are being labeled as domestic terrorists. I want you guys to know that it's a shame that parents have to remind school boards they have constitutionally protected First Amendment rights when voicing these concerns. I think that suppressing and silencing parents is something that school districts should not partake in. Remember that these are elected board positions and parents are now awake and watching. By even considering such actions, lets everyone know where a board stands. If a board doesn't like or agree with something or anything that is being told to you by a parent, the new fallback will be you're a domestic terrorist. So I guess this is the equivalent of the modern day race card being played by school boards. They are the victims, when in reality, the parents, students, and the teachers and school staff members that are caught in the middle are the actual victims of communistic mandates and overreach by the school boards. Let's not forget we are the actual parents, not the board. School boards need to do the right thing, be accountable, and honor parental constitutional rights by working together. And so there is no mistake. For those parents who do actually threaten real actionable violence or personal harm onto another person, board member or not, then yes, absolutely, 100% that person should be held legally accountable. Not the 99% of parents who voice their concerns, all because they actually care and have a vested interest in what their kids are being subjected to at school. Board members as well should be held 100% accountable for their actions and decisions and not abuse their elected positions. Again, I am here to peacefully request that our school boards refrain from engaging in any labeling of parents and guardians as domestic terrorists. Coming to school board meetings after school board meeting to have requests in the past fall onto deaf ears was really an eye-opener for me. They say don't complain about something unless you have a solution. But at this point going forward, I feel like everything I've heard about vaccine clinics being held at schools when I feel like this has no place at a school, the only solution that I have is for parents to pull their kids out of public schools.
That's your time. Number 5.
My name is Dick Rasmussen, and I just wanted to advise you all you were in an executive session, but thankfully Texas Governor Greg Abbott just issued another executive order cracking down on COVID-19 vaccine mandates, this time banning any entity in Texas, including private businesses, from requiring vaccinations for employees or customers. Amen. It's an honor and privilege to exercise our rights as citizens of the United States and the great state of Texas. Beyond that, it's our duty to combat tyrannical behavior, groupthink, and anti-American sentiment, of which this board is really the epitome of. I was not able to attend the emergency board meeting in August, but did attend the board meeting the following week in August. Let me begin by saying that it was absolutely abhorrent how this board is treating parents as criminals versus concerned citizens. I showed up that evening only to find metal detectors and scanners necessary for parents to pass through in order to attend this meeting. Additionally, this board had illegally, against the governor's executive order, required parents and citizens to wear masks in order to gain entry to the meeting. Not to mention, there was a small army of armed NEISD police here to escort us at all times to and from the overflow rooms as if we were some kind of criminals. It's completely unacceptable and absolutely a travesty how this board operates. There is very little room for public dissent or comment during the meetings. It needs a change. We need new leadership. On to the COVID debate. Statistics show that people under the age of 20 have a 99.97% chance of recovery from COVID-19. This is a higher recovery rate than influenza. However, Dr. Micah and this board continue to bring one-sided arguments purporting high infection rates, hospitalization, and ills of COVID-19, only stoking the fears of parents and students in the district. If you were truly wanting to have a debate about illness, use of masks, vaccinations, you would look to present both sides of the argument. In fact, we learned from a release of documents requested the hospitalization of NEISD students was 0. This information was intentionally kept from the board meeting and the citizens of NEISD due to, quote, HIPAA laws, which was ridiculous because all the other statistics on infection rates were presented to this body. We know from the tyrannical anti-parent stance that this board has taken in the past, this board will attempt to mandate vaccines. Parents, teachers, and students need to be ready for this next move, but everyone needs to stand up against such measures. We know that the vaccine does not work. Look at who is spreading the Delta variant now. It's the vaccinated, not the unvaccinated. But yet we somehow have to protect the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. If the vaccine is so effective, then those who are vaccinated shouldn't be concerned, but that's not what it's about. It's about compliance. This is not a vaccine. It's gene therapy. It's experimental. It's never been used before. It uses spike proteins. As such, there are now third and fourth shots that are boosters that aren't effective. When does it end? The tyranny from government entities, including this board, will only increase unless parents, teachers, and students stand up to these mandates. If everyone stands up to these mandates, then they will have to back down because they'll not be able to control the populace. Even if you're pro-vaccine, you must stand up to these tyrannical mandates and regain your freedom to dictate to the school district, not the school district dictating to you. 2022 is right around the corner, and several of these board members are up for election. The citizens of these districts must unite to elect new, free-thinking, conservative members who will stand for constitutional principles instead of acting as dictators.
Number 6. Number 6.
Number 6.
Hi, I'm Summer Broom. So I don't have a lot to say except happy Christopher Columbus Day. It certainly is a fitting day to be having this meeting, as I assume many of you know that Christopher Columbus was leaving a country that was led by a tyrannical king in search of a new world. He and the other explorers were willing to risk their lives to find this land. He and the others also believed that they had God-given rights, that they were inherited, and that they were Christians, and they wanted this new land to be different than the one that they were leaving from. So along that, I know many of you are Christians, and I know that we, your constituents, voted for you to have this position, your church family, your friends, your neighbors. But I do have a question for you. As board members, who do you represent? Do you represent us, your constituents, or do you represent TASB? I just feel like the history of your votes indicate that you represent TASB and not us, your constituents. And I want you to know that many of us are praying daily for you, but we feel we need to be represented. And then the last thing regarding education, I know that Mr. Jarrett had spoken on this last week, about the standardized testing from last year, that many of the schools were failing and not even meeting the grade level expectations. So, and in particular, my son's school is one of these that failed every subject in 7th grade. I am concerned about that. I feel like as a board and as a school district, the main priority is education. It is not healthcare. We have a whole sector of healthcare, which my husband works in, that is dedicated and educated on healthcare. And I feel like if we can't even get the education part right, why are we dipping our toes into these other topics and sectors? Why are we talking about healthcare and trying to enforce that on our children when we can't hit those milestones of education?
Thank you.
Number 12.
I looked at your agenda this evening, and some of the things that
Please state your name for the record.
Oh, Paula Hillyard. It's not exactly clear all the things that you're going to be considering this evening, but I think we'll find out after you pass things, and then we can maybe as a community give you some feedback. But as you make decisions tonight, I just want to put a few images in your mind. First, I want you to picture joy. The community has, for the first time in a long time, been experiencing joy. We've had football games, band competitions, plays, and other performances. Our community is overjoyed. Please remember how important smiles are, humanity is, and love for one another. To celebrate being a community, being human together, is the best medicine for our current circumstances. Second, as you're thinking through things tonight, I want you to picture hope, the hope of a child, whether they're 5 or 15. They have a hope to see their friends. They hope to discover something new, like Christopher Columbus. They hope to learn. It's why you exist as a board, to ensure that learning happens and to the utmost. Third, I hope that you'll picture strength. Our community is strong. We parents, we're reconnected now. The kids are connected again. And all we want is the best for our kids. We want the best for teachers and other staff. And when you make decisions, I hope that you can respect our dignity, our hopes and dreams, our tax dollars, our hard work. And when you do that, we can't help but support you. So as you are our voices tonight, the voices of the people, picture those things that you, however you can, joy, hope, and strength. Maybe it's a volleyball team. Maybe it's a cheerleading squad or a production crew celebrating their final show. I don't care who it is, but whatever signifies those things for you, those are the people to think about when you're making your decisions. That's who you serve, and that's what you should center them around, your decisions around, doing what's best for them. For example, if an issue that you consider silence is joy, don't give in to it. If an issue squashes hope or is somehow not good for our community, that's not for us. If it hurts families at all or staff as a whole, walk away from that idea. Be our voices of unity, of human dignity and common sense. And I hope I have time, but on the issue of dignity, I have a small addition. Last week was Custodians Week, and I see it's before the board for this week. I hope we can do better next time with our timing, if I have my facts straight at least. We are in a state of our nation where people prefer to take a government check instead of work, except work gives you human dignity. And I'm so proud of those people who choose to work. If we aren't all tipping our wait staff, even our fast food workers, then we don't clearly understand what's happening in our country right now. Our custodians work hard every day, and in my family, we value dignity that comes with work. And those hardworking men and women inspire me because I think they understand that and they carry that dignity. I see it in their eyes. You get the point. I didn't get to finish, but please choose what's truly good and ethical. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Item 7, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action to submit complaint to SBEC for job abandonment without good cause by Chapter 21 contract employees. Do I have a motion to approve?
I have the motion.
Okay. Ms. Huey?
I move to approve the notification to the State Board of for Educator Certification of the contract employees discussed in closed session for abandonment of their contracts without good cause.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 probationary contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 8, presentations. A, bilingual ESL program evaluation. Mr. Jarrett.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. At this time, I would like to ask Alicia Calderon to come to the podium for this agenda item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, and executive staff. Every year, as you know, TEA requires us to evaluate our program and to be presented at the board meeting before November 1st. So that's why we're here today. The first thing that I would like to address is that we have, the state is changing the label from English learners to emergent bilinguals. And so I need some time to get used to it as well. So I'm probably going to be, making a mistake here and there. But we're supposed to be addressing those as emergent bilinguals. As you can see on the chart, our population has continuously grown in terms of our emergent bilinguals. And for 2021, the population went down a little bit. However, because of the district population, our district enrollment went down significantly, I would say, then our percentage of enrollment increased. So we're at 15.12% right now. Well, not right now. This was as of October of last year, because that's when our PEIMS snapshots are taken. Currently, we are seeing an influx of refugees from Congo and Afghanistan. And so they're coming slowly, but they're coming in. And so we're probably going to, that number is probably going to increase. We also have seen an influx of Japanese students up in our northern schools. And so we continue to enroll them, and we continue to try to be as quickly as possible in terms of enrolling them and testing them and everything, and qualifying them as emergent bilinguals. This is pretty much where our population stands and all the students that we service. You have the terminology on the left side of the slide. So English as a second language is actually the program. And you can see how many, if you look at the pie chart, you can see how many emergent bilinguals we have in ESO programs. An ESO program is a program that's fully taught in English, and just with supports for those students until they get, the level that they need in English. We have denials, we have parent denials, who are parents that do not want their children in bilingual programs or in ESL services. Then we also have the monitor students from 1 to 4 years. We continue to monitor them and see how well they do. Then we have the English proficient students, like the little girl we had earlier from Jackson Keller, who's in the dual, the parents chose for her to be in the dual language program. And I don't know how many of you are fluent in Spanish, but her pronunciation was beautiful. Just I just have to say that. And then we have our emergent bilinguals in dual language programs, who are our what we used to call our English learners, who are the big part of our program. So our program goals to perform above the state and the region in all subject areas, and to close the achievement gap between emergent bilinguals and general education students in Northeast ISD. This is probably the hardest thing to do. It's the second part of our goals there, or the second goal. The first data that I'm going to show you is TELPAS. TELPAS is Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System, and basically what it is just a test.
Can I interrupt you for just a minute?
I'm sorry.
Can you please put the flag against the wall or something, because people behind you can't see?
Okay. So basically what it is a proficiency test that we have to, by law, test all kids. It's a requirement from the state and actually from the federal government as well, where we test our students in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And so they are scored every year, and we look at their progress from year to year. And so as we can see, the yellow bar is the test in 2019. So those are our results, and the green bar is from this year. So the state target is at 36% of yearly progress. So from one year to another one, the students have to make progress in one level. The levels are beginner, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. So if you're in advanced in 1 year, the following year you're expected to be at advanced high. And if you're beginner, you're expected to be an intermediate, and so on. So we can say, I think that the virtual instruction was not the best for elementary grades in terms of language acquisition. It is very, very difficult to, to be able to get the students to participate, to engage in the learning when you're speaking a different language and the students don't understand. When you're in the classroom in person and the kids are a little bit more advanced in their English, it's a much easier task than actually try to do it, virtually. Especially, again, for those who were like at the, beginning and intermediate levels. At the middle school, when the kids are a little bit more advanced, we made some progress. So we actually scored better than 2019. And again, we have to remember that some of our virtual students, and I do not have the numbers, but I mean, most of our students tested, but we do have some virtual kids that were doing, virtual instruction that did not come for the testing. But that's across the board, not only for TOPAS, but for STAR as well. So this is high school, which they also made some growth. And we are above the target, which is, 36% for the district. And here you see what we hit this year or this past year and what we hit in 2019. The next data that I have, and I'm just gonna go through it pretty quickly unless you have any questions. It's 3 to 5 STAR, and this data was pulled from the TA assessment portal, the data interaction portal. So the data is not 100% set in stone yet. It's all students. It hasn't been filtered to the students that count for us and don't count for us, et cetera, et cetera. The TAPA report doesn't come out until late November and December, so that's why we have to give you this raw data and not the actual data. So the first one is reading STAR Elementary. The blue bar is NEISD. The green bar is Region 20, and the red bar is the state. And these are emergent bilinguals in bilingual classrooms or in dual language classrooms, all right? So these are students who came into our schools without speaking any English or not proficient enough to be considered English speakers. And this is 3rd, 4th, and 5th in reading. Now, this is our Spanish test. Unfortunately, from that data portal, I cannot pull both of them together, and so I had to do them separately. So that's our Spanish elementary. You can see we are on top of the state and the region. This is math, STAR Elementary. And we were particularly proud of this because we have been really behind in math in previous years. And we have been closing the gap with the state and the region. And I don't know what happened with COVID, but we were able to surpass them this year. So that was something interesting, to see. Same with the Spanish STAR Elementary, the math, okay? This is the writing and the science. For the writing, we have been doing very, very well for the past 5 or 6 years. We put some things in place, and they have been doing really well. And they continue to do so, and the same with the Spanish, the STAR, okay? The science we dropped, and I think that's because very few students are tested in Spanish. Actually, that 22% is only 17 students in the whole district. because our science is it's one of the courses that we teach in English, and so we test the kids in English, most of them in English. But these are kids that maybe are recent or newcomers that had just arrived to the United States in 5th grade or maybe 4th grade, so they were not ready for the test, and also the content, which is very, very difficult, the science, for our students to do well on that. We move on to ESL classrooms. So these are the scores for our ESL students in our classrooms. Again, performing above the region and the state. And this is math. And this is writing and science. We move on now to dual language and ESL for 6th through 8th grade, so middle school. And we're going to see kind of like a little bit of everything here. 6th grade, we see a drop, as usually. It's the students trying to get used to that middle school. 7th grade, they did fairly well. And in 8th grade, we were a little behind the state, not so much from the region. Math, we know that 7th grade was a big dip in math, and so you can see that in there, and especially with our emergent bilinguals and dual language classrooms, and I believe you're going to see it in ESL as well. This is writing and science, and then we move on to ESL classrooms, reading for 6th, 7th, and 8th, and math. You see that dip in 7th grade, which was statewide, but we know that as a district, we also need to really work on that 7th grade math. The next set of slides are for our high school students. Now, our high school students, because we went through the exception last year for bilingual, the way they coded the students, they were not, I couldn't bring them up in our data portal, in the TEA data portal. And so what we did is we got all of those students from our Age Euphoria Aware, which is the system that we have, and we went student by student to see how many of them passed and how many did not pass their EOCs, their end of course tests. So in this case, where we have in when we have in high school, it's all students in dual language classrooms. So that includes emergent bilinguals, that includes students who were previously emergent bilinguals, so they're monitored 1 through 4 years that we have to monitor them, or there were students who were English proficient. Actually, we don't have that many English proficient at MacArthur right now. MacArthur is our only high school that has a dual language program. Most of them were previously emergent bilinguals or they're current emergent bilinguals. Now, that algebra numbers are from the 8th graders as well that took algebra in 8th grade. So all of those numbers are combined in that percentage right there. Biology, the interesting thing about biology is that it's a course that is taught in Spanish, 100% in Spanish, but the kids test in English. So we're very proud of Mr. Garcia at MacArthur. He does an amazing job with our students. And the same with U.S. history. It's another test. It's another course that they take in Spanish, 100%, but they test in English. You see there's missing data there from the region, and I believe that the reason for that is that I guess we don't have schools here in Texas at the high school level that are taking, I know that some schools have started, or some districts have started the high school dual language program, but they're probably not at that 11th grade where they need to take that U.S. history. And so that's why we don't have that data on there. This is really, really impressive, which is the English 1 and the English 2. Our scores are really low for English, for emergent bilinguals across the state. And so this is very impressive at 86% and 84% for English 1 and English 2. This is the ESL, and you can, if you kind of, remember the numbers, you can see that there's a big difference between all of our scores in dual language classes. And we continue to recruit for our dual language students at MacArthur. You can see that difference there. We were like 86, I think, % in English 1 in dual language, and here's 37, and then for English 2, we're like 84, and ESL is 43. We're still, ahead of the state and the region, but we know that we have to do a lot of work with our ESL classes. Our next steps is, we continue to collaborate with all content areas and to provide professional development for our bilingual and ESL students on best instructional practices and emphasizing student discourse and student engagement. Our specialists continue to provide coaching as well for teachers. We continue to work with campus administration and central office leadership to build capacity within the district to run effective bilingual and ESL programs. And bilingual and ESL specialists participate in professional learning communities in schools to provide the support that we need in our classrooms and for our teachers. And we're also part of the Reading Academies this year, which I'm sure you've heard about. So training our bilingual teachers and administrators. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Hi there. Thank you so much. This was just really incredible data and some wonderful work. I did have a question about the science, the Spanish science in elementary. That concerns me. I understand it's a small group.
Yeah.
But are we doing anything to address helping those students? I mean, that just seems like going to be such a big challenge for them.
Absolutely. We usually students that come, immigrants that come, it doesn't matter from where, from anywhere they come from. That science test is extremely difficult for them because of the vocabulary. And in other countries, I can speak for myself, in Latin American countries, science is not as emphasized as it is here in the United States. So where they come and they see all this content is shocking. It's completely shocking for them. And so we continue to provide, support with teachers and trainings, and we're in the classrooms with them, helping them as well. So a lot of the linguistic accommodations that they have to do in the classroom, we model for them, and we train teachers as well on certain specifics, strategies that work really well for the classrooms. But we certainly are working with them.
Yeah,
yes.
thank you, because it just seems like the challenge is there. I mean, the subject matter, first of all, and then not even having a familiarity with those words either in English or Spanish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they have to find out the Spanish words too before they can even.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All
other
right.
languages too. But
Yeah,
in this case,
yeah.
it was a Spanish
Yeah.
specifically. Yes.
Okay. I did have one question on the denials earlier in the very first. That's parents that have denied, correct? I just want to make
Yes.
sure that I understood that.
Correct.
We
So-
have not denied services.
No.
Okay,
We can't do that.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, because the way it was phrased, it looked like we
No,
were not.
I'm sorry. No, it's parents who deny programs, services for their
Okay.
students.
So if the parent denied help for their child, I guess I'm worried about those children.
Well, there's a big misconception about ESL and bilingual education. Basically, one of them is a labeling. They're going to stay with that label forever and ever. That's one thing. And the other thing is that we have a lot of parents that come and tell us, I can take care of my child if I speak Spanish at home. My child will learn Spanish. They don't need to learn Spanish in school. But the research says differently, and that's why we talk to the parents. Usually the principals are the ones that they go to, the first person that they talk to, and then if they can't convince the parent, they usually let us know, and we talk to the parents. But sometimes it's, it's their choice, and we do whatever we can to try to convince them to be in the bilingual programs. But it's not always possible. Now, our denials numbers is I know that 300 sounds a lot, but it's
In
very
comparison,
small
right,
compared
exactly.
to
Yes,
the rest of the state. Yes.
Yeah, but still, it's still 300.
It's
So,
still 300
yeah,
kids.
so,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just concerned for children.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Congratulations. I know that
Thank
there's
you.
always work to be done, but it looks like you had a wonderful year. Your department had a wonderful year, a successful year. I did have one follow-up question on that denial. I know we discussed that last year a little bit, but has that number increased?
Yes, it went up this year.
It did?
Yes.
Okay. And then
About 100 kids, I believe.
100 more? Okay. And then my second question is, I know that in your other presentation, you'll have, it shows where you have some of those ESL students that are on different campuses. But I was wanting to know if we have certain campuses that are concentrated in ESL. I know we have designated dual language campuses, but I'm more interested in that ESL piece.
Our title campuses that are not dual language have the bulk of the ESL population. However, we do have some northern schools that do have a lot of ESL students as well. Like Johnson is getting an influx of ESL students since last year, I believe. And so they're everywhere, really. You know, if I need to give you an example of a title campuses, Camelot, for example, elementary has a lot of ESL students. We have Colonial Hills as well, because we have refugees in Colonial Hills and Cerna. And I mean, there's different campuses. They're everywhere, really.
Well, I believe Cerna is one of our extended year campuses. Is that correct? And as well as Jackson Keller. And so my follow-up to that is, we've extended our year to help close those gaps. Are we doing anything to help with where we need to close the gap even further in the ESL department? And that's the end of my questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's a collective effort. So we had our first intersession last week or week before, and we had about little over 50% of our entire students show up for intercession and get the support they needed. So it was a high attendance. Everything is customized to focus on the standards that kids need in order to be successful going forward. So really what they're focused on is interjecting now instead of waiting until the end. And so it's inclusive of all students. So I don't say it's specific for ESL or bilingual kiddos. It's really inclusive.
Yeah. Questions? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Item 9, board business. A, possible act.
Excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I don't believe you can interrupt.
Because the cops unfortunately told me that I wasn't able to speak and they had me outside, and y'all pass like matters from the floor, right?
No, we have, if you signed up to speak to a specific agenda item, you will be called at that
I
time.
did, and unfortunately, y'all's police officers that don't
What
know
was the agenda item that you signed up to speak for?
It was not It was not for the COVID-19 information update. It was just matters of the floor, which they were in regards to talking about mass.
What number are you?
I was number 9.
You signed up to speak to COVID mandates according to the sign-up sheet.
Okay, COVID mass mandates. I
Yeah,
think it's
and
the
that
same.
item will be in a few minutes.
Okay, because others were speaking and I just didn't want. I wanted to make sure that
You
we
haven't
weren't
been called yet.
I'm just.
You will
checking.
be
You don't
called.
have to talk to me that way. I'm just
Let's move
checking.
on to the next time if we can.
Item 9, board business. A, possible action regarding nomination for Bear Appraisal District Board of Directors 2022-2023. So we currently have John Fisher serving on this as our director for this, and it's time for us to nominate someone again for the next term. So do I have someone that wants to speak to this?
Madam President, I'd like to nominate John Fisher to continue in that position.
Okay.
He's served on it for 2 years, and he's an advocate for our district, and has been doing a great job. So keeping track on things at the appraisal district and keeping Dr. Micah and Mr. Villarreal appraised of what's going on. So I'd like to nominate him to continue that role.
Okay. Do I have a second for John Fisher?
Second?
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry.
I had some questions, but we can wait after
Okay.
the motion. I just did it. I always forget, when do we do the questions? Do we do it after the motion? I'm trying to understand. This is my first year, so I apologize for messing that up.
Discussion, we can do it right now.
Is that right? This is obviously the first year, and so Mr. Fisher, obviously you know him from previous, is that correct? Or from last, you nominated him last time, I guess. Do you know him?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was trying to figure out, what are the qualifications? I'm just trying to understand. They work with the appraisal district, assuming they get elected, and then they coordinate with the district. I'm just trying to understand. What is he? I'm trying to understand.
He's not elected.
Okay.
He is a community member who represents the district at the appraisal district board.
Okay.
So the highest.
We nominate.
We nominate, and then, because I was trying to figure out, and then there's a voting later on, or is it just we nominate one person and he automatically gets a slot?
He is, and I'm not sure.
We have so many votes, so
Okay.
by the end of, let me look with that.
Yeah.
We will cast our votes by December 15th. So he will be, we'll get a list of people that different districts, do you want to speak to it? 'Cause you may know
Thank you.
more.
I'm just trying to understand the process because I wasn't sure about
Correct.
it in that first year.
So we nominate someone and then
Yes, ma'am.
there's a whole list
Yeah,
of
there's
people.
there's a list that's presented, and each district gets so many votes depending on how many accounts they have at their appraisal district. And they're kind of like the board
They are.
that kind of runs the budget for their appraisal district, and they kind of manage their appraisal district. But it's made up of all the entities that their appraisal district appraises for.
Okay.
So similar to this, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller.
So it's an unpaid position, but they're a board of
Correct.
director oversight where they
Yeah,
coordinate.
so
and-
similar to this board,
Okay.
he will, the appraisal district will come to them with their data, and there's 10 people on the board or something of that.
Five, okay.
There's 5 people on
Five?
the
Oh, I
board.
thought it
Yeah.
was more than
They
that.
have nothing to do with the actual appraisal
The
of
appraiser, they're
properties.
the oversight?
Yeah,
Okay.
their main job is to hire the chief appraiser
Right.
and then, like David was saying, and then oversee the budget. So kind of like this board.
And same thing, they have the same conflict of interest disclosure, same thing. They make
Yeah.
sure there's nothing that is,
Yeah,
you know.
they're under the same open meetings.
So
and
they,
things
similar to
like
what
that.
we do,
Mhm.
they just do it for the Bear.
Right.
Okay.
And so what he'll do is, keeping the district in mind and our taxpayers, he'll listen to what the information is from the appraisal district and then help kind of make that decision with the other board members that are there. They're representing the other entities. And so
And
he's-
our nomination of Mr. Fisher tonight doesn't guarantee him a place on that board?
Correct.
Because the 5 highest vote getters will be the appraisal district
Okay,
board.
so that later on the list comes back and then we'll cast our votes for
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
No, thank you for the clarification, the explaining on Mr. Fisher.
It's a very convoluted process.
Just trying to
yeah.
understand, because obviously
Yeah.
everybody cares about the tax dollars in the process, and I've learned a lot this year about how the whole taxing mechanism works.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And just so you know, just for, because you weren't here in the last time, he's a longtime resident of the district, went to school in the district, so he definitely keeps us in mind when he's at the board at the table with those people.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Okay,
Madam President.
Thanks. So we had a motion for John Fisher and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. All right, item 10, new business for possible board action. A, COVID-19 information update on and possible adjustment to existing COVID-19 plan. We have 4 people who have signed up to speak to this agenda item.
Number 3. Sorry, let me get my clock going. Okay, sorry.
My name is Allison Miller. At the emergency board meeting on August 19th, most of this board voted to implement a mask mandate that was supposed to remain in effect for up to 6 weeks. The mandate went into effect on August 23rd, so 6 weeks ended last week on October 4th. We've had this mandate for about 7 weeks now, but because of state law, it was enforceable by the district for only 4 days, and the term enforceable is questionable to say the least. Nonetheless, my 5-year-old son was forced to wear a mask for 4 days because I've taught him to follow rules and laws, which apparently is a lesson that this board collectively has not grasped. For most of these 7 weeks, masks were essentially optional, and yet, thank God, COVID cases have declined week after week after week. The week with the highest case count in our district was the week of August 16th through the 22nd, which was the first week of school for most students, with 352 cases. The number of new cases last week was 153. That's a 57% drop from its peak. In fact, 153 cases is actually less than the district had the week before most schools started. Those statistics are in stark contrast to the doctor's presentation last month. While I have no doubt she's an excellent doctor, she certainly cherry-picked arguments that coincidentally supported the board's mandate. The mask mandate is illegal in our state. The 6 weeks have expired. COVID cases in the district have decreased significantly, and the city of San Antonio downgraded its risk level to mild. If you do not remove the mandate now, when will you? What are you waiting for? These are not rhetorical questions. I know that we're about to discuss this, and I look forward to that discussion, and I want you to ask yourself these simple questions. I look forward to the discussion. I look forward to the elimination of this illegal infringement on my parental rights. Thank you.
Number 7.
Hello, my name is Destiny. This is my daughter, Emily.
Hello.
I am a research student, National Science Foundation funded research student. I'm also a mother. My daughter is 3.5 years old. She did attend one of the school districts here in San Antonio, but I decided to withdraw her. And the reason being was I just didn't want her to feel peer pressured to wear a face mask. As the parent before me spoke, this is an illegal mandate that was placed by all districts within San Antonio. A few things I have written down for you. COVID-19 poses almost no risk to our children at all. 4.2 million children have tested positive, and a total of 0.008% of those kids have died. God bless those children. But what about the flu? The CDC estimates 480 kids died from flu in 2018 through 2019 season. Now, did any of the school board members here or anywhere within the San Antonio area suggest at any point in the 2018-2019 season that any kids wear a mask for the flu? Which again is more dangerous to kids than COVID. So as you guys make your decisions today to either continue this mandate or totally do away with it, which I really hope you do, keep in mind that the parents ultimately have the choice. Like I said, I withdrew my daughter, and I know that you guys are having low enrollment rates, and as this continues, it will progressively get lower and lower. Thank you.
Number 8.
My name is Linda Chapman. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about vaccine mandates for your staff and your teachers. I understand, I just saw something a little while ago that Governor Abbott has said no vaccine mandates are allowed, but I wouldn't put it past most of the school districts here to do it anyway, because following the law doesn't seem to be very important to any of you guys. So my comments are for you all to consider, and also for any of your teachers or staff or anybody from any district who's hearing this. I want them to understand that they have legal rights to fight against any mask mandate. I recommend that they go to TexansForVaccineChoice.com as one resource, and another resource is thehealthyamerican.org. It's a lady named Peggy Hall. She's put out many, many great videos about asserting your rights against vaccine mandates and mask mandates and all kinds of things like that. Anyway, I just want to make sure everybody understands, any of your teachers understands that they can ask for, let me correct that. It's not asking for, they can advise you guys of their religious exemption. It's not asking for it, it's not a request. If they have a religious exemption, they need to just tell you under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, they have a right to assert that if they believe, if they are the religious belief that their body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and they have a God-given immunity system, they have a right to not allow anybody to mandate putting any other kind of a vaccine into their system. They have that right. And if y'all refuse to honor their exemption, they should file a complaint with the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And lastly, I would just recommend to all the employees, do not comply with that. Do not be bullied, do not resign, do not quit, do not retire. The law is on your side. They cannot mandate a vaccine if you do not agree with it. And lastly, I would just like to address the way y'all treat us is disgusting.
Number 9.
Want to say hi again?
This is me. It does wear mask.
Don't wear a mask. Got it. Okay. All right. Hello, board members. I'm sorry if I interjected earlier. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was just making sure we didn't get passed up. I'm going to. All right. Good evening. My name is Lauren Guerra. I'm here to speak for the students, parents, and teachers that can't be here today to speak against these vaccine and mask mandates, to also shed light on my personal experience and how this is negatively impacting the children in my life. I don't have numbers or stats, anything like that. This is my own personal experience. I'm here for those children suffering quietly from psychological and physical illness because of the prolonged mask wearing, because they are just following instructions from adults that lead with fear and don't have the courage or strength to go against the grain. Those who are unable to see the corruption or who is prolonging this nightmare because fear, money, and self-interest. I have a 13-year-old sister that is already an introvert as it is and hardly speaks to others. And now with having to wear a mask that she's now accustomed to, she continues to have social anxiety and slowly showing signs of depression. She comes home with acne bumps where her mask lies and always comes home mentally, physically drained and her face is flushed. She says teachers don't even wear masks correctly and kids only wear them when the teacher's looking away, or are looking, and take them off. So this is solely a fear and control tactic that is being enforced by hypocritical and contradicting teachers and or principals. I don't understand how each district is different. Either each have their own set of rules and biased opinions just to control and manipulate these children. Lastly, I have a 3-year-old sister that doesn't interact with me the same since COVID started. No more hugs or kisses anymore because my father and her stepmom vilify me along with those that don't wear a mask or choose not to get vaccinated. This is my family. This is what COVID and fear has created on the masses. I'm here because I see evil, and the only way I can stop it is going against the narrative and speaking up for my sisters and others out there that don't have a voice or don't have courage to be here and to speak in front of all of you. Thank you.
And that's all.
Okay, so thank you, Madam President. I just have 2 updates for you all this evening. So on behind us, and Mr. Villery, I'll chime in if you need to. Right here are the COVID numbers, as you can see, for the district since August the 16th, and it's broken out by week, and you'll also notice that it's broken out by student and employee. So you'll take a look, and as you can see, August the 30th through the September the 5th is actually when we hit our highest number of cases at 523 combined. But since that point, we have been on a steady decline, both with the students and employees. So it's been a very nice decline with that. Jason, if you'll flip to the next slide. So this, and I apologize that this is so small and so difficult to read, but what it is on the top in red are the cases by the city that they have reported. It's really over a year now worth. And then down below are the numbers that we have reported as a district. I do want to point out that the y-axis is different between the two, and it's simply because if we would have used the same one, it wouldn't have really kind of demonstrated what we were looking for, I guess, but we weren't really sure what we would see. But if we would have used, because the city has, 1.4, 1.5 million people, we have 60,000 kids. It's hard to use the same Y, so we changed it. What was interesting, and I guess the only thing I can point out, what we saw in this is really as the city starts to rise, we don't see a rise right away. What we see is a 3-week delay, and then we start to see the cases rise in the district. So you can see there was one little bit back. The first, don't look at the far left. Come to the right a little bit, where you see this first little kind of bump. If you look down below, you'll see about a 3-week delay when we start just a little bit of a bump. And then as you can see, cases started to rise in the city to your far right. You'll see that there's about a 3-week delay in there, and then we started to rise. The city started to decline. 3 weeks later, we start to decline. What does that say? I'm not really sure. I don't know that we can generalize it. It's just kind of an interesting piece that as we kind of overlaid it, we didn't see a one-to-one correspondence. We see sort of a delay in it. So other than that, that's really all the updates that we have for you this month. When it comes to COVID, Mr. Villarreal, is there anything to add? I mean, at our testing site that we're running, it's wild to see the numbers because one day we can have, I think the highest we saw was 30% that actually tested positive, and another day We had zero.
Zero. For 2
And-
days, we had
and
zero.
they're-
And
yeah.
then the
I mean-
third day, we had like 15%. But the population isn't as high. I mean, it's just maybe 30, 40 people come and get tested. And if 4 people come by, then the positivity rate will be high.
So that's really the update. I mean, there's nothing else very new to share with you as far as COVID, other than cases are declining throughout the district, which is great news.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh,
Are
Ms.
we
Hughes?
okay on the supply of tests?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I knew that we had prepared ahead of time.
Yes,
but-
ma'am. Yeah, we ordered quite a bit.
And that's on the campuses too, they're all okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and we distribute them as they need them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Did you have something?
I did, but let me think about that.
Okay.
Yes, I just had a question. Thank you, Dr. Mike, for that, because it looks like we're trending behind, but on the same scope. But obviously, we had two parts of the mandate, if I remember correctly, the 6-week temporary mask mandate, which effectively has expired. And the second part was the ability for Dr. Mike and the staff to spot mask. Is that correct or not? Or is that part still in effect, correct?
Mr. Hilliard, per the law and per the legal advice that you and I have both received, we are not going to enforce masks on anyone, period. We're not going to implement them in any way, shape, or form in a mandatory way.
No, I understand that piece. I guess what we voted on policy-wise was a 6-week thing, which hasn't been in effect because of the law. And the second piece was giving you and the staff authority to spot masks with an indefinite thing was what we voted on. Is that correct?
Right, but we're not doing that.
I agree, but my question for the board, do we need to readjust that policy to align with what we're currently doing? Is, I guess, my discussion with the trustees or not? Because we're not doing anything effectively. The policy's not being mandated. I'm just trying to clarify what we voted on, which is the COVID plan was that, correct? That was the plan. Obviously, we're not doing it because of the legal.
I guess I don't remember us.
We'd have to go back and look and see if, I know that we discussed that.
Right.
As part of the plan. I
Yeah.
don't know if that was, I don't recall if that was an action item that was.
Okay, I just was trying to
officially
clarify
voted
to
on.
align everything with what we're actually doing. That was,
But we
Right.
don't have a mask mandate, nor do we have a mask policy.
Well,
We have a suggested mask. Because when we made that policy, we voted on that policy, the governor then came 4 days later and said, no, you can't, it stayed. So there is no policy. We don't have a mask mandate or policy.
currently not in effect. I guess
Correct.
once we get a legal opinion, then we'll readdress it, I guess, at that point. Okay.
Correct.
I just trying to clarify because there was two pieces
Yeah,
that we had
no.
discussed that evening to clarify.
That
There
was
were.
null and void when the governor, yeah, was that 6 weeks ago?
Did you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, whenever we did, I just trying to figure out what we, the plan, had voted on and just if we need to readdress any of those particulars until we get a legal opinion, we may not need to. Okay.
I think it's kind of a moot point.
Oh, I think
honestly.
maybe too. I just
mean,
want to make sure I understood what we agreed to because we had those two parts of the plan. And I was just trying to clarify. So we'll readdress as we need to if it becomes, depending on what legally happens and what the numbers do.
Yeah.
I think so.
And so I guess, I'm sorry.
No, there was no,
Any-
it
anything
was a
else?
discussion point. If I was missing something, make sure we're synced up. Okay.
No action.
You know what, I could use a little bit of clarification on that too, because as I understand it, the night that we made this plan, there were legal, we did have legal clarification that it was okay to make that plan. But then 4 days later, the plan really went out the window because we're following the law
Right.
that our attorney advised us on, and so
Yeah.
we went with the law. and-
Agreed. I
and-
just want to make sure
okay.
because the plan and what we had voted on had two pieces to plan.
And maybe
Okay.
that's the confusion, because
Yeah.
the information that we get every meeting is just an update on what our numbers are. And the adjustments to our existing plan are based off of our testing but nothing is being retroactive.
No, I didn't-
Policies are being retroactive. It's just an update on what our numbers look like and what our policies are as far as testing, notifying parents. We've had some adjustments with that, since we had the,
Yeah.
original.
Yeah, I
meeting.
agree with you. I mean, it just got so confusing. with
I
the
just want to
back
make
and the
sure I was
forth
clear
and
on
the
what
back
the
and
plan
forth
was
and the
because
back-
we've had
yeah.
changes, so.
I agree. It just,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank you,
needed
Madam
that
President.
clarification too. Thank you.
So I guess here's my question. Do we need to continue having this as an agenda item? Because it seems like numbers have come down, we're not mandating. You know, again, to me, if it needs, I don't know that we need this as an ongoing agenda item. That's my opinion, but I don't know.
I think until there's a legal ruling, if obviously we're doing what we're currently doing, which is mass optional, recommended, then we continue to do that until we need, because we meet frequently, so we have the ability to put it on an agenda if it became an issue that we need to. I don't know what everyone else's opinion is.
I think it, I mean, I would appreciate at least, excuse me, the numbers over the next, couple of meetings, just to, not even, doesn't even have to be a full presentation, but just here's where we are so everybody can see what the trend is. And I think it would be smart to look at that just for another month, just
Okay.
to see.
So
'cause
just
we have a
kind of
couple
do
more
basically
meetings.
what they did
Correct.
tonight.
Exactly.
Which was
That's
provide
all.
numbers and
Yes.
compare it to.
Yes.
So are you wanting what? Let me be clear. Which numbers? But do
What
you
you just
want
showed us
city
tonight.
and district?
That would be helpful, yes.
Okay. And then do you want? So if we just do this slide right here, that is fine for
Because we
you
have
all.
the weekly updates on the
Right.
website and everything, but
Okay.
it'd be good to see this compared to the city.
Perfect.
And
We can
that's
do
it.
that. That's easy.
Did you have anything else before?
That sounds great.
I did want to clarify, there's a couple of comments that we've got matters from the floor and the discussion from the community. Can you please clarify the misconception about the vaccine clinics in our schools? We do not have vaccine clinics. This came up last month as well, but I just want people to know that we are not actively out there trying to vaccinate your children at the school without any kind of authority or permission.
So what we've always done, Mr. Byer, as a school district for decades, because one, the district has never mandated vaccines, and I'm not planning to do that. That job is left up to the state. They have the authority. So any types of, no shots, no school vaccines come as from a state or a federal government piece where they mandate. We do not and have never been in that business of mandating vaccines. We're not going to go there. As far as the vaccines in the schools, we've always partnered, and Mr. Villarreal, you can chime in, with different entities to come in to offer the flu shot,
yes,
or mumps, or rubella, or chicken pox.
And usually it's at the beginning of the school year because of the no shots, no school. So we try to set those up in some of our areas that seem to have the biggest need, so that way we can offer that. But we don't run them, we don't host them. I mean, we partner with an entity to do it if they want to come in and do it. We did use Curative to do some of our sites in June for anybody who wanted to, but I mean, that wasn't on us. I mean, that was something that, like I said, Curative in the state, DHS said, hey, you might want to run some of these, but we're not actively doing any of those. Right.
But all vaccine clinics, if we're doing any of those types of vaccine clinics on site, parental permission has to be,
correct.
Period.
Correct.
And Mr. Byer, back in 2009, the federal government and the state asked us to be able to do at different campuses for H1N1. Because remember back then, it was the next big thing that was coming. So we did, through parent permission, have some at the campuses. But like I said, it wasn't something that we mandated or we just offered it as a choice. But the Texas Department of Health and the federal government at that time had asked us to do that.
Right. And as far as employees, Mr. Byer, even with when the vaccine became available, we partnered with UT Health, but it was always optional for employees.
Yes.
We offered it in a variety of ways, in a variety of manners. In fact, I just created, because there was some questions about the booster. And so we just gave them some information on where they can go out and actually obtain the booster, if they choose to do so.
Anything else? Okay. All right, item B, redistricting process plan for single-member districts in accordance with education code requirement. Dr. Mike.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to ask Deb Caldwell. I'm sorry, Deb. Our Executive Director for External Relations, to address this.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, executive staff, and guests. Tonight's presentation is going to provide you and the public with an overview of the redistricting process and to request your action on a redistricting plan. So this is what we'll be reviewing tonight. We'll be talking about the electoral system that Northeast ISD elections are based on. We'll talk about when is redistricting needed, what are those requirements for drawing those maps, what considerations could be part of that drawing process, when would trustee maps take effect. We'll bring you at the end staff recommendations for a plan, and then you'll have the opportunity for possible action on that plan. In Northeast, we are under a single member district electoral system. What that means is we have 7 single member districts, which you'll see color coded on the map on the screen. Each trustee, each of you, serve a 4-year term representing one of those districts. That is, our elections take place in May of even numbered years. Trustees must reside in the district in which they are representing, and voters can only vote in the single member district in which they reside. So when is redistricting needed? It's when you need to create balance because of changes in population. Texas Education Code informs us of that process. We have to redistrict when that census data shows a deviation among population of more than 10% between your most populous district and your least populous district. Just to be clear, tonight's presentation is only talking about, everybody's laughing, but we want to be clear. It's only talking about the boundaries of the single member districts used in an election. We are not talking about our school boundaries this evening. We are not talking about our school boundaries tonight, just the boundaries that elect our 7 single member districts. So to continue with that conversation after that public service announcement, on the screen is a map of the single member districts with the 2020 census population data. Single member District 6, as it exists today, is now the most populous district, and District 3 is the least populous. The deviation between those two is 29.8%. So redistricting is needed to balance the single member districts as required by Texas Education Code. Now you may be wondering why that percent looks different than what was in your packet and what was posted in the action item. I'm going to go over our methodology on the next slide, but I want to say that the change in number that was posted in the agenda does not in any way alter the need to redistrict. You're still exceeding the 10% requirement, so redistricting is needed. So let's look at that methodology. So here is the 2020 census data for each of the single member districts. Our research and planning department calculated an ideal size or an average of what a single member district could be based off of that total population. So you take the 434,037, divide by 7, you get 6,205. To determine that district deviation, how much you're above or below that 10% requirement, then you subtract your least populous district from your most populous and then divide by that ideal size. So in this case, you get the 29.8%. There's no required methodology on how you arrive at that deviation. So the first percent that was in your packet was from a different methodology, but once we saw what some other entities were doing using this ideal size option, we thought it was much more transparent to base it off of an ideal size versus between the two, and that's how we arrived at the 29.8%. We think that this method of basing it off of that ideal size is easy to understand and transparent. It's easy to explain. So, what are the requirements? What does Texas Education Code tell us? Texas Education Code tells us they have to be compact and contiguous, that they have to be nearly as practicable as equal population. It doesn't have to be exact, but it has to be as close as possible. And we must draw those maps no later than the 90th day before the first regular board election after the chance you have to act on census data. So that is what Texas Education Code tells us. And of course, the next regular school board election is May of 2022. So what are some of the considerations that you can direct staff to take when drawing those single member district maps? I mentioned the first criteria, that is in Education Code, as we previously mentioned on the slide before. But there are other things you can consider. Geographic boundaries, roads, waterways, things like that. Communities, neighborhoods. Or you can also look at other boundaries. Voting precincts, polling places, school attendance areas. And you can also consider the ability, when drawing maps, to maintain the existing boundaries to whichever degree possible, so that it doesn't look dramatically different. These are all considerations. So when do they take effect? Texas Education Code 11052 and 11053 give you some options. You can either have all positions up after the redistricting process, or you can phase in the maps and trustees would serve the remainder of their terms as, are in existence at the time of adoption. For candidates and voters, May 2022 would be the first election with newly adopted single-member district maps. As a reminder, candidates for the Board of Trustees have to reside in the district in which they are hoping to represent, and that voters have to vote in the district that they represent. So here's a proposed timeline. We're bringing to you today this presentation. We are asking for you to adopt a plan. We would recommend by next week creating a web page for transparency into our community of the census data, the timeline, and the process, and create a process for community input, a way to gather their comments on proposed maps. Actually having public meetings with the proposed maps so people can look at them up close. Of course, they would also be available online. Our recommendation would be that at the December 13th board meeting, we would bring to you the presentation to review that community input that we received, the proposed maps, and then for you to adopt a final map for each single member district. Then immediately after, those maps go to the Bexar County Elections Department. There is no Department of Justice pre-clearance this time. In the past years, we've had to seek that as an additional step. But once you approve the maps and they're sent to the Bexar County Elections Department, the voter registrar, they are in effect. We would create trustee candidate packets with the new maps because the first date of file is January 19th. The last date of file is February 18th, and then election day is May 7th. So let's recap what the staff is asking for you tonight. Bring this presentation to a close. On the screen are those recommendations. We're asking you to approve those considerations that we had on slide 9 for drawing those new maps that staff would draw. We recommend creating a public web page, a process for public feedback, and conducting public meetings in order to review those maps to ensure that our stakeholders are engaged in the process. We are recommending that you adopt new single-member district maps at the December 13th regularly scheduled board meeting. Allowing current trustees to complete their term is something we have historically done, and a lot of entities do that. It is consistent with what other school districts do. It's also more cost-effective because you're not running 7 elections at the same time. You're only running half. So we are bringing to you, our recommendation from staff is that the new maps would take effect with those term expirations. So single-member districts 2, 3, and 7, which would normally be up for that May 22 election, had redistricting not exist, that those would be up, and the others would be allowed to complete their term, And the new maps for 1, 4, 5, and 6 would be in effect for the 2024 election. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
Yep, on the, I understand we don't have to do the DOJ clearance again, but the reason for the DOJ, are those guidelines still in place? The ones about balancing so far as, we have a majority minority district type of whatever, all that
It's
balancing.
the 10% truly is the guiding factor, that no district can be 10% larger than another.
And that's the only thing? So all the other DOJ guidelines that we had to follow in the past, those are no longer applicable?
These are the requirements that are
Okay.
in Texas Education Code. We would have to, of course, still apply other things with the Voting Rights Act and other pieces, but for the most part, this is what drives everything, is
Okay.
the population of people.
All right, thanks.
Did you have something, Ms. Binkley?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Makes sense.
David?
Thanks, Ms. Hall. That's great. Just a quick question, not a quick one, maybe it is, but on that public website, will there be a way to do, I'm going to use the term Google form, where we can get concrete data? Because obviously the board at NASD email is good to hear from the community, but it gets filled up very quick and we're all unpaid. But will they do that where like live in the district or what single member district, so we kind of know where we're getting the comments from and all that stuff's going to get developed, I would assume?
Absolutely. We haven't decided if it would be a Google form or a Qualtrics survey. Qualtrics lets us get a little bit deeper into like having the graphics there where people can maybe comment on an actual graphic of their map. So we're still playing with that. We didn't want to move too far ahead without your permission to do
Certainly.
that. So that is something that we would have. It would be an electronic mechanism where people from home or at the public meeting could scan a code and participate live in the public meeting in some way. And yes, we would hope to gather some information about where they live currently to help understand if they're bringing forward a issue of a neighborhood, for example, wanting to stay together.
Yeah, like they're each just community member of a parent in a certain school district, all that
And
kind of
Mr. Hilliard and the rest of the board, if there's something that you specifically think that would be helpful for you, then let me know. Send me an email or something. And that way then as they, if you approve it tonight, that we start to work on it. We have your input into it, like, hey, we'd like to see this, and we'll build it in there the best that we can.
Yeah, it's just good, I think, for us to see the perspective of the different community members,
100%.
depending on where they are, what district
Yes,
they're
sir.
in or might be in. And,
Sure.
and the other question is, I assume the trustees are not involved in the map production per se. That's the staff will kind of look at where that 10% is, but how soon would the initial map possibly be available for us to see, or at least to get out to the community? I know there's a timeline here. Sooner than that?
Well, again, we're tentatively saying late October would be where the maps would be available for review. So that is what we are.
Yeah, I guess that's really only 2 weeks. I guess it is, okay. Sorry, I'm looking at December.
I don't know, Mr. Hilliard, that we would have it sooner than that, but.
That's fine. I was looking at it December. I realized the initials.
Deb, are we allowed legally to release them to the trustees prior to the community, or do they have to go out at the same time?
There's no guidance that I'm aware of the timing. So once they are public, they are public. So whether it's a trustee looking at them or a citizen looking at them, I don't think that the law would have any difference on that. So once they're public, they're public.
Okay. No, I think, the other question, I know Dr. Mike had previously mentioned, like 75% of the voters are don't have students in the district. So the outreach program, I'm assuming you have a process, whether it's public libraries, HOAs, you'll have something to get, however you get out to the rest of the community, just to make them aware of this issue because it will impact them.
Absolutely. So in addition to the normal channels of social media and the website, I have a database of all the homeowners associations by city council district, which honestly does a great job to inform our work because, a lot of the city council districts, we can look at how it overlaps with yours. And so my thought process, again, with your approval of this plan, is to work with our management information folks and our research planning folks to figure out if I can create some kind of email push out, inviting them to the meetings and inviting them to the website once we have those up and running.
Thank you, Ms. Gallo. Thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
Along the same lines about, trying to reach as much as we can, our community, especially our seniors, right, that are living in our district.
Yep.
Is it possible to, and you don't have to answer this right now, but, maybe record them, or whether it be audio or, maybe a stream, that way that they're safe, so somebody can go back and look at them when they're, if they couldn't be there, or maybe if it's live, they just, click on the YouTube channel and then, just like here, just that maybe that might be important for those that can't physically go to a meeting.
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. We talked about it as a team, Dr. Micah and I, in research planning. We don't want that to be a barrier, the physical piece being a barrier, and we also don't want the physical meetings to be different in that something was said here that wasn't said there. So just brainstorming, again, would need your approval, to go out on public meetings, but just brainstorming, we actually thought about recording a video that would be played with Spanish subtitles. That would be at every meeting. So it wouldn't be Deb Caldwell forgetting, oh, I didn't say that the first meeting, but I said it the second and the third meeting. We want to make sure that we are consistent and clear and transparent with the information. So we talked about having a video play that would also be on the website so that they wouldn't have to be in person. The maps would be on the website. The advantage or the potential advantage of having a public meeting is some people don't like to interact with graphics online. It's hard to see, you have to zoom in, and all those tools might be cumbersome for someone. But we've talked to our research and planning department about producing really big maps that you would walk up to and see street level detail.
Right.
Where you could find, that's my home. And of
Because
course,
some of the map, I mean, it gets it can get difficult inside of a community. So we really want people, I mean, we talked at our print shop about how large can you make that map? Because again, we want people to be able to walk in. What we discussed is walk in and say, okay, that's where I live. That would be my single member district.
Yep.
We don't want them to be guessing, because at some of the maps, it's hard. You see streets, but you don't have names. It's hard to tell. So we're really wanting to make certain that people can see exactly what they're looking at.
and right now online you have an interactive school board map that you can type in an address and it tells you what single member district you're in. We are looking, is that a possible way also for that online version where it can be an interactive proposed map 1, proposed map 2, but that you are looking for your address on the proposed maps as well. So these are all things that we're trying to do to make it accessible to our community.
Sure, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir, and I know you guys talked about this, but you know, when I looked at those, I'm not a math person, guys, but I was looking at those formulas and equations, and I was like, I don't know, I did not do good in math, but I just making it a little bit, you know, being cognizant of, you know, user friendly for those that are not like math people like me. It just needs something like that's like, I like the idea of the larger map, so you can go in there with that, and that if you don't have a computer for that interactive map, you can just go in there and say, this is where I currently live, this is a proposed, this is going to change. So just being aware of that kind of stuff, because
Thank you. Absolutely.
Did you have something else?
I'm just wondering, Deb, if maybe we don't need to display them here as well. In
permanent
between.
Display?
Yes, and you know, for those people, at least they know if they can't attend a meeting, they can come here and at least see it, access it, comment on it.
And again, for that comment piece, what we were thinking is, again, if you have the maps there and there's something that you're scanning to get to that survey, you're giving that comment right there live. You're not having to have a person you're interacting with to give a comment to, like an open mic or an index card or something where we misinterpret. It's that you are completing a process there as you're reviewing the map. So we could definitely do that with a QR code or something that's published with those maps for people to give feedback.
Anything else? Okay, so do I have a motion to adopt a redistricting process plan as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Item C, resolutions. 1, possible action regarding Texas Education Human Resources Day. Mr. Jimenez.
President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, I'd like to invite Shiloh Whitten, Executive Director for Human Resources, up to the podium to address this agenda item.
Good evening. The Human Resources Department's mission statement is to employ and value personnel who are committed to providing a safe and secure learning environment where our children can grow and be successful. The NEISD HR department is an amazing team of 35 staff members who provide support to approximately 10,000 employees through every stage of the employment life cycle. I am privileged to work with this group of talented and dedicated professionals who are committed to meeting the needs of our students, staff, and community. To acknowledge the role HR staff have in recruiting, selecting, training, and retaining quality employees, Governor Abbott has proclaimed October 13th, 2021 as Texas Education Human Resources Day. Tonight, we present a resolution to the Board of Trustees to recognize this date as Texas Education Human Resources Day for the Northeast Independent School District.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that you and your department do for our district. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I know everybody's facing a lot of challenges these days, and my gosh, what y'all are having to deal with. Thank you, just doesn't even seem big enough.
No.
Thank you.
So do I have a motion to approve the resolution recognizing October 13, 2021 as Texas Education Human Resources Day?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Shiloh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support.
Item 2, possible action regarding National Custodian Appreciation Week. Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Mitchell, sorry.
That's all right. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, at this moment, I'd like to invite Dr. Barry Lanford to the podium to talk about this issue.
Good evening, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, and executive staff. This past year and a half, we know that it has been an extremely challenging time for our hardworking custodians, and many factors have arisen to make their jobs even more difficult than they are on a daily basis. These men and women are always the first to arrive at a campus and the last to leave. And I have asked, and it's in front of you, that a resolution be passed honoring them and the work that they do. Originally scheduled for an October 4th meeting that was rescheduled to tonight. As we know, October 2nd was the National Custodian Appreciation Day, and many campuses went way out of their way on that Friday, October 1st, to do lunches and honor our custodians. And last week was just simply filled with some of the most excellent celebrations because our campuses appreciate what our custodians do. So we are asking that you officially, retroactively, recognize October 4th through 8th as the official Northeast Custodian Appreciation Week, and moving forward from this year on, the week closest to the national holiday would be recognized as National Custodian or Northeast Custodian Appreciation Week.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was awesome to see all the posts on social media where everybody was celebrating them
Yes.
and recognizing them because they do. They do a fantastic job.
Yes, they do.
And Dr. Micah, your photo of the custodian and the young student who loves him so much, she dressed up like him with all of her keys.
Yes.
I thought that was precious.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Truly appreciated him.
They've been doing line share work. I was recently as a parent at an event, and they're the quiet professionals, but they keep the place clean and safe and keep it sparkling. So, I mean, I did recommend all the kids out there and parents, everyone, thank them by A, clean up after yourself, and B, also just say thank you to them as individuals because they are there. Some people, one guy with 18 years, I think, has been there. I mean, really, truly impressive of the commitment they have, what they do in the background. So, big thank you to the entire team.
There's a gentleman at Lee, he's going to be retiring in December after 37 years at Lee.
Wow.
So you talk about, I, Mr. Hilliard, with your permission, I'm going to take your phrase, quiet professionals. I won't say steal, I will take your.
Not my phrase, feel free to share.
Thank you.
Also, I'd like to just make a thank you to, we talk about campus custodians, but custodians that work in our auxiliary sites, like this site, and transportation, anywhere else that we have buildings, they're working just as hard and helping each other because they're helping other employees for the district. So a big thank you to those guys as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's a really great point too, because they're a piece of this factor of mitigation. The work that they've stepped up to do to help all of us stay safe in the classrooms and in the offices and across the district it's been huge these last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do I have a motion to approve the resolution proclaiming October 4 to 8, 2021 as National Custodian Appreciation Week?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lanford. Item 3, possible action regarding school lunch week. Dr. Mitchell.
At this time, I'd like to call Sharon Glosson to the podium to talk about this issue.
Good evening. So we've talked today about a lot of unsung heroes in our district, and going along those same lines, I'm asking tonight for you to pass the resolution to declare October 11th through the 15th as National School Lunch Week. We are looking forward to seeing those of you that will be serving on Thursday at Stubing Ranch Elementary, and you have a red t-shirt there at your place. If you would like to wear it, you're welcome to wear that t-shirt just to show yourself as a member of our team. That is our department t-shirt for this year. I'd like to just, we've already recognized the hard work that they've done throughout the last year and a half, but this year we're especially proud of them as they are serving over 60,000 meals every day and just continuing to do such wonderful work. And if you didn't get to see the great story on the website today about the best restaurant in town at Nimitz Middle School, it was really heartwarming, and so I just encourage you to stay tuned because the communications team has done some excellent stories to feature our cafeteria staff specifically this week. So, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, just to reiterate, they have not stopped. Yeah, they're doing an amazing job. So do you have a hat for us to wear too? Or?
Yes, we'll have a hat there at the site for those that come.
I'm ready. Okay, do I have a motion to approve October 11 to 15, 2021 as National School Lunch Week?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Sharon. Item 4, possible action regarding National School Bus, possible action regarding National School Bus Safety Week. Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Jack DeForest to the podium to discuss this issue.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, proud to roll up here last this evening. And I'm honored to be here to ask you for your support for the resolution before you for next week, October 18 through 22, is National School Bus Safety Week. Our department is privileged to be just one small part of a big, wonderful organization in Northeast ISD and the operations division. Like to ask you for your support for that, and we do have a hat for you in the gift bag, which we'd like you to wear with pride as an honorary member of our department. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll only wear it if I can come drive a bus again.
We will let you. We have trainers who will
Do
keep
we have
you
insurance
safe.
for that?
Yeah.
No children present.
That's correct, sir.
No comment.
Correct, Mr. DeForest?
Yes, correct. No children. Sorry.
No one anywhere in the parking lot. Do I have a motion?
Wait, I do want to say we also have some of your employees who've stepped up, who are not necessarily bus drivers, who have been driving buses. And I see one in the audience. Daniel, thank you so much for being here and being part of this team. And so, although they're not assigned bus drivers, they surely do step in and get in the wheel where they can drive students. Shannon.
Yes, ma'am. Daniel's one of
Yes.
our mechanics,
Yes.
and he can drive a bus and deliver kids as well as anybody. And when he brings it home, he can fix it if that's needed too. They're pretty special. We have a bunch of them, and Daniel, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the resolution proclaiming October 18 to 22 2021 as National School Bus Safety Week.
So moved.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
DeBoer.
you.
Item D, Instruction and Campus Administration. 1, possible action regarding retention supplement for 2021-2022 school year. We have 3 people who have signed up to speak.
Number 1.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Micah, and community. My name is Adonis Sherman, and I'm the president of the Northeast Education Association, speaking on behalf of our membership. We are asking the board for consideration for a retention stipend for all NEISD employees. 2% from the midpoint raised this year, with an upcoming increase of possibly 10% in our health insurance premiums, means that many employees are receiving a pay cut due to the fact that 75% of our most district employees are enrolled in the health insurance. NEA proposal would give every employee a retention stipend of up to $1,000. This stipend would be paid in December and June for all eligible employees. Employees have gone above and beyond to serve the needs of our students in this district. Bus drivers have driven students to summer academies. Teachers have created interventions that are student-driven data, and our instructional coaches have assisted with the collection and implementation of that student data. These are just a few examples. We need to know that our efforts are not overlooked. The board has the opportunity to appropriate some of the ESSER funds it has received to benefit all employees, and the opportunity to promote other activities that are necessary to maintain operation and continuity of services. And that includes the continuation of employing existing employees. Thank you.
Thank you.
2.
Good evening, Mrs. Grona, Dr. Micah, and all trustees. My name is Yvette Milner, and I serve as the Regional Membership Specialist for the Association of Texas Professional Educators here in Region 20. On behalf of the nearly 700 ATPE members in Northeast ISD, I want to express ATPE's support for the 2021-22 Employee Retention Supplement. We urge trustees to vote yes on this resolution. Given the staffing challenges faced by school districts across Texas, we believe this retention supplement will be a useful tool in Northeast's efforts to retain employees during these difficult times. We believe this is an ideal use of ESSER funds provided through the American Rescue Plan. We thank the board and administration for their efforts and to address staffing challenges in this way, and ATPE is available to serve as a resource to you now and in the future. Thank you for all you are doing to keep the Northeast community safe and strong. We ask that the administration and board continue to explore ways to support your instructional and support staff who have faced and met unprecedented challenges over the past year and a half. Thank you.
Thank you.
10.
Good evening, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'm Patsy Esterline, president of the Northeast AFT. This has been an extremely hard year for teachers and support personnel, so we are pleased that a retention supplement is on the agenda. As you know, excellent teachers who ordinarily would continue teaching are retiring. Many teachers who cannot retire are nonetheless resigning, with most leaving teaching. This is true all over the state. And even recruiting teachers is getting harder and harder. Therefore, Northeast AFT urges you to adopt the retention supplement. Teachers and support personnel are going to need your support in many other ways this school year, including restoring and/or increasing stipends. We would appreciate your placing stipends on the agenda for the November meeting. The retention supplement is a good first step in rewarding the employees who are working through a very difficult year. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'd like Ms. Whitten to come up again to address this agenda item.
On June 24th, the board approved the 2021-2022 compensation plan that authorized the superintendent to determine if budgetary conditions permitted the opportunity to provide a retention supplement to support the district's commitment to recruit and retain quality personnel. We are pleased to confirm the district's administration has determined funding is available through the American Rescue Plan's ESSER federal grant. Therefore, tonight, we seek the board's approval to provide a one-time retention supplement to all active regular employees hired on or before October 1st of 2021. The amount of the retention will equal $575 for full-time teachers and librarians. For all other eligible employees, the amount will be based on 1% of their applicable annualized pay grade midpoint. We further propose to process this as a one-time lump sum payment in November. Specifically, that would be November 12th for classified employees and November 19th for certified employees. Before the board takes action regarding this resolution, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions?
I've got a couple. What's the approximate total amount we're talking about spread across all eligible employees?
The total amount of funds?
Total amount that, yes.
I'll defer to Mr. Moy.
Oh, go.
Or if anybody has it.
Okay, so the maximum amount that was placed in our ESSER plan was just under $4.3 million. It all depends on, we're short-staffed, so that's fewer staff than who will be receiving, but it'll be somewhere in the upper 3.8, 3.9 to 4.1.
Okay, so pushing in that 4 million-ish range.
Correct.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Huey.
So does that kind of limit the amount that, so we couldn't like maybe double this? We really not. Mr. Moy, anybody? Could we double this amount? I mean, we want to think big here.
Well,
so we're kind of limited on the
yes, ma'am.
ESSER.
Because when we submitted our ESSER plan, that's what we had put in. But there's no provision for us. We'd have to amend the ESSER plan to see if when we get the third of the plan, since we only got 2/3 up front.
Right.
And the plan speaks to the whole, the total amount of over the 100 million that we're supposed to get with ESSER 2, ESSER 3.
You know how it is. There's just never enough for our teachers. I have to push your button. It's much.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Winkley.
Yeah, I just want clarification. We only received 2/3 of the whole.
Yes,
but our
ma'am.
plan for spending included 100%.
Yes, ma'am.
So although we have a plan to spend everything, we haven't received it all.
Correct.
So that 4 million is
It's part of the first 75 that we received.
okay.
Oh, we'll be receiving. I'm checking the mail every day.
When should we have it?
To that point, the latest estimate from our grants administration department is that we should likely be hearing about the opening up of the final third towards the end of November, maybe early December.
Was that your question? Okay.
And I think to Ms. Grona's question is, do we have an idea of approximately when that might be coming, the first round, the first 2/3?
Checks in the mail.
Okay.
No.
I get that.
We just received the NOGA a few weeks ago. So.
Remember, the post office now has a delay in service, so I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming. I don't.
Yeah,
I mean.
So these federal grants work on a cost reimbursement basis. So it's not like they're cutting us a check for $78 million.
Correct.
We have a plan for 78.
Right.
As we incur, we file, they reimburse.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the retention supplement for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
May I just make a comment there? So I want you to know it, for those of you that have been on the board for a while, this is pretty early to come with this type of a supplement. One of the things, and as you all know, one of my priorities has been the mental health of our staff and our students, right? So the staff and I had a long discussion about when to bring a supplement because, as you all know in the media, supply chains have been strained, prices are going up. One of those stressors comes with the holidays with money, right? So it was important for us to bring this early to you all for consideration, and hopefully this is maybe just a small piece that maybe gives them some respite, coming this holiday, whether it's for Thanksgiving, whether it's for Christmas, that they have that money early enough rather than our traditional way, which is in giving it in December. When those things are incurred. So I appreciate you approving that motion, and I'm sure our employees will appreciate it as well. And I hope that it helps them with a little bit that they're encountering.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shala. Item 2, possible action regarding 2021-2022 District Instructional Improvement Plan. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. At this time, I would like to ask Dr. Munoz to come to the podium to address this agenda item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, we present the 2021-2022 District Instructional Improvement Plan for Northeast Independent School District. This year, it's a little easier to say than it was last year. The contents of the District Instructional Improvement Plan are highlighted in each slide of this particular presentation. Texas Education Code 11.251 requires that the Board of Trustees of each independent school district to ensure that district and campus improvement plans are developed, reviewed, and revised annually for the purpose of improving the performance of all students. The purpose of the district improvement plan is to guide district and campus staff in the improvement of student performance for all student groups. The district improvement plan must include provisions for a comprehensive needs assessment addressing district student performance on the achievement indicators and other appropriate measures of performance for all student groups served by the district, measurable district performance objectives for all appropriate achievement indicators for all student population and education program, strategies for improvement of student performance that include instructional methods for addressing the needs of student groups, evidence-based practices, dropout reduction, integration of technology, positive behavior interventions and support, professional development, career, education, accelerated instruction, and implementation of a comprehensive school counseling program. As we navigate through each slide, I would also like you to notice the image along the right-hand side of this particular slide. It is actually an image that comes from Michael Fullen's book called Coherence. We are actually right now doing a leadership book study with our wonderful leaders here. And it is called Coherence of Right Drivers of Action for School Districts and Systems. Each department focused on these segments when they developed their goals for this year's plan. So we looked at focusing direction with purpose-driven goals that impact clarity of strategy and change leadership, cultivating collaborative cultures through growth, learning leadership, capacity building, and collaborative work. We also look at securing accountability both internally and externally, and deepening learning through clarity of learning goals, precision in pedagogy, and shift practices through capacity building. By utilizing these strategies when building our goals as a district, we are then able to lay the foundation for campus goals. So as we look at our table of contents for our district instructional improvement plan, it has not changed. We do still have our mission statement, which states we challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. We do still have our board goals, and they state NEISD will prepare our students for college and workforce readiness by challenging them to maximize their knowledge, technological skills, and potential for learning through both academic achievement and personal excellence. NEISD will provide and maintain safe, supportive, and equitable learning environments for our students.
Any ISD campuses will serve as centers for community involvement. Any ISD will develop and promote positive relationships through communication, involvement, and partnerships with our community. We will also emphasize character development and civic responsibility. We will continue to use best practices in its efficient and effective management of district resources. We will recruit and retain exemplary employees committed to student excellence, best practices, and professional growth. And we will also foster a culture of health and wellness among our students and staff and the community. Part of our accountability rating is also there. It is actually given there as a accountability waiver for this year, indicating not rated. We are declared a state of disaster for 2021 as well. And this is the state's way of recognizing low participation rates for state testing. And they also basically let us know that not rated labels, when a district or a campus receives that label, the district or campus may continue to implement the previously developed instructional improvement plan for this particular year. However, all departments have gone above and beyond, and I'm very, very, very proud to say that they have actually looked at this as an opportunity to be able to develop more strategies, more ways to summatively assess our students, and having a broader scope as far as how they're going to be able to provide those strategies and support. And you also do have the content, which is department-led, and it's aligned to district centralized goals. So the structure and the purpose for our particular plan says that we have a section, and we do have our board goals that are listed there. They identify the goals defined by our school district and our school board. There's also target areas that list district target areas for improvement. There's also measurable evaluation criteria, which is summative, and it defines criteria that will be evaluated. And there is actual goal points and sections where you'll be able to see what months of the year we'll be able to see this criteria go through. Performance objectives and strategies defines the what and how the district will work toward that goal. We also have formative checkpoints and programs, assessments, and resources used to measure progress throughout the year. And we have timelines, persons, cost, and resources. And that also defines the when, who, and what will be used to reach these particular goals. We also have, We also have the Division of Instructional Improvement and Administration, and there you actually see all the sections that contributed to the development of the District Instructional Improvement Plan. We have the area of curriculum and instruction, and all of those subpoints there actually list all the departments that fall under that particular department. We have the Special Education Department. We have Learning Support Services Department, Technology, Student Leadership and Wellbeing, Fine Arts, Student Activities and Athletics, Human Resources and Pupil Personnel, and the Division of Business Services. Across all divisions and departments, we do have the positive behavior interventions and support system, and we also have positive school culture and social emotional learning embedded throughout. So we're going to go ahead and navigate through the website so that we all can see exactly what is posted right now. It is in draft form until it is formally approved by the board. If you go there to all, and if you scroll down, you're going to see the word draft 2021-2022. If you click submit. So when we did this particular presentation, we also took it to DEIC this last week. We also gave them the opportunity to provide us feedback on the District Instructional Improvement Plan. We did receive one response because it's very, very specific in nature. It's a good read at 51 pages, I can tell you that much. Because it is an open book. It's like a menu of exactly what our district is doing and what our goals are and how we're going to evaluate that. And that one response was that it was just a little difficult to find because we had to scroll down to the bottom. But other than that, they said that it was very, very helpful. And there was a lot of great information that they didn't know about what was actually going on in our district. So the proposed 2021-2022 District Instructional Improvement Plan is available there for our community to have access to. If you have any questions about the District Instructional Improvement Plan, District Department representatives are here this evening, and they may answer any questions that you may have.
I just have one question. Thank y'all. It was a light read, by the way. I see most of the checkpoints are coming up in October, November, so
Yes.
will we as the board get briefed on those initial, I know the map testing and all the initial assessments were going on. I know y'all previously briefed that. Are we going to get kind of a first snapshot of where we actually stand here in the next month or two as y'all get all those data points?
So traditionally, we don't bring it to the board unless it's requested. However, we use it as a checkpoint for self in order for us to modify and adjust our plans accordingly to meet the needs of our students and our teachers. And so if that's something that you would like an update on, of course, you can request that and we can bring it back to the board. But the checkpoints is really for us to stop, look and see how we're performing. If we're not performing where we think we should be at this point in the year, then we modify our plans accordingly at that time.
When would we normally get the update? Because I'm still learning the schedule, like where y'all would come back. Is it near the end of the school year we get an update from y'all as far as the overall performance?
Yes, it's the overall performance. It'll be the end of year report, the TAP-R, which you will actually get last year's TAP-R will be coming up soon. And that's where you get the STAR data. We also bring you like the AP data, all of those different things. Usually we give you kind of an end of year recap of how we performed and what our goals were and how did we end up. But again, we can share whatever information, but as we're working through it, is really those, we don't want to just create a goal at the beginning of the year, put it down, never look at it again. We really want to be reflective and go back and modify according our actions needed.
No, it's great. I was thinking as a board, if we had any policies, we needed to adjust it to help further facilitate whatever y'all needed to continue to meet those goals was my thought, but if we need.
Absolutely. If something, as we get ready, we see something's not working, if we feel like there's something the board can support us on to make sure that we're moving in the right direction, we will definitely bring it back to you at that time.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the NEISD District Instructional Improvement Plan for the 2021-2022 school year as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Munoz.
Thank you.
Item 3, possible action regarding request for English as a second language ESL program waiver. Mr. Jarrett.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I would like to ask Alicia Calderon to come back to the podium to address this agenda item.
Good evening again, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. So, in our part of our the requisites that we have from TA is that our students, emerging bilinguals, are served under either the ESL program or the bilingual program. Under the ESL program, we need to have certified teachers to be able to service our students. We currently have teachers who are going to be working on their ESL certification this year. And therefore, since they probably will not be done until the end of the year, then we have to file a waiver for their certification so that they can continue to work with our students in ESL programs. And so you have, as an attachment, you have the number of teachers more or less at the different levels, elementary, middle school, and high school, who need to work on their certification. And so we need to get it approved by the board so that we can file the waiver at the end of this month. So we recommend that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the request for waiver for the English as a second language program as presented.
Will you clarify what you just said on this waiver request? It says number of students at the top, but you're saying that's the...
Correct. So each one of the, so if you look at it and it says, for example, we'll start with the first one, Bulverde Creek, it says
Yes.
4th grade.
Yes.
So that's one classroom, one teacher.
Ah, okay.
So we have 24 teachers at the elementary, 7 at the middle school, and
Okay.
2 at the high school.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry, does anybody else have other questions?
Well, yeah, why are the numbers so much higher at almost? The number of students and the middle schools are high too. You were talking earlier about we've got more.
So I'm sorry, so much higher at almost, is that what you said?
Yes, almost, and
Uh-huh.
then the middle school numbers are, most of them it's 1 or 2.
Mhm.
And almost is 18, 16, 17, and then
Yeah.
the middle schools, 18,
16. Because, because they are concentrated in certain areas in our district. And so although almost is a bilingual campus, we still have a lot of ESL population in there, and the same with with the middle schools. Now in the middle schools it works a little bit different because we cluster our kids through certain teachers who have that certification. So if that teacher leaves, for example, and then we have to hire somebody new who doesn't have the certification and they don't have time to get the certification before this meeting, then we have to put them on the waiver. Okay, does that clarify a little bit of? And we have to code these students differently every year. So that changed maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not quite sure, but the coding has changed now. So when we put that coding in PEAMS, all of these students, we have to code each one of them under either a waiver or an exception, which is the next item. Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the submission of the request for waiver for the English as a second language program as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 4, possible action regarding request for an exception to the bilingual education program.
So on this one is basically any district that has an enrollment of 20 students or more at any grade level with the same language background, we have to provide bilingual services. Okay, so if we have, for example, 20 first graders across the district who speak Vietnamese, then we have to provide a bilingual English-Vietnamese program in first grade, and so on. And it's the same for all of the elementary grades, K through 5. And so we have to, if we don't have the Vietnamese bilingual teachers, then we have to file an exception to the bilingual program. And in this case, we have enough children, enough students to file an English-Vietnamese program and an English-Arabic bilingual program as well. And so the numbers that you see in there are per grade level for that reason. Vietnamese, and then the separate attachment for the Arabic.
And we've had to do this the past few years. Right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. And we, our populations continue to grow, so we're having, like I mentioned before, an influx of Afghanistan students, and so, Pashto is another language that continues to grow in our district.
The numbers are a little bit higher than they have been in the past?
Yes.
Or, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so, again, we recommend that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the request for both items for the exception to the bilingual program as presented.
Okay, any other questions?
I know this came up last year, and we looked at this, and the numbers have gone up a little bit. Are there any other districts that are being successful or have been successful in getting the instructors for these couple of programs?
I don't believe so here in San Antonio.
Okay.
I don't think we do have, I don't think we have any Vietnamese, because the highest population after Spanish is Vietnamese in San Antonio. I know in Austin, they do have a program. We have not visited. But one of the challenges that we have also is that our kids are all over the district. And so the parents, even if we offer the program, I find it very difficult for the parents to agree to bus their students to a central location, because we would have to have only one teacher, one school.
Well, it'd be good to, obviously you guys are, but as this continues, keep an eye on those other programs that might be out there that we can
yes, sir.
Look at as models that might help us out. Because it looks like we're obviously seeing a trend just in the last couple of years that has gone up. So that's it.
Okay.
Following up with what David was saying, then, is this maybe something that sometime in the future we could look at some type of online tutoring to help these students that are specifically in the Vietnamese or the Arabic, or these or.
Yes, we could, if we can find the tutors. Yes, I mean that's the big thing is that we find we have not been able to find any Vietnamese speaking, Arabic speaking adults that can help us in the schools. I mean, we usually go with human resources department to the different, job fairs that they have to recruit for teachers. And believe me, we're always looking for bilingual and ESL. And then, of course, the past 2 years have been, we haven't gone out there. Everything has been virtual, but we're always on the lookout for these specific languages.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the submission of the request for both items for the exception to the bilingual program as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Calderon.
Thank you.
Item E, Business Services. 1, possible action regarding resolution indicative of the Board of Trustees' annual review of investment program. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests. This is our annual review of our investment portfolio. I have Brian Moy, our Executive Director of Finance and Accounting, and Shanna Torberg, our Treasurer, if there's any particular questions.
Any particular questions for Mr. Moy? Or no? Okay.
Yeah, like Mr. Hilliard said earlier, more light reading.
It was.
Yeah.
No, thank y'all for the, well, I'll just say thank you for the report because it was detailed and answered the questions. Like our rates went down, but that's because of the market rates, but we're saving, we reinvested the bond, so, but yeah, it was some light reading. It was, thank y'all for the detail in the report. It made it
It really is, yeah.
easier to understand, a lot of numbers. No questions.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the attached resolution?
So moved.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item F, Operations. 1, possible action regarding access control system upgrade district-wide. Dr. Mitchell.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, at this point, I'd like to invite Chief McCampbell up to the podium to discuss this topic.
Good evening, President Guerra, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Our current door access control system has exceeded its limitations and expectations of the district. This is due to the expansion of security and safety protocols of door access, security, and monitoring throughout the district. We have done everything that we could to continue with our current access control system. At this time, we have spoken with the company and had been advised that the system just can't be expanded to meet our expectations. Because of this, we assembled a group of safety and security council members comprised of 5 departments: police, network technology, risk management and safety, and maintenance, and construction management and engineering. We spent over 24 months, this team, and reviewed the available software solutions and piloted them at 3 of our high schools. The pilot was in place for approximately 18 months, and each system were analyzed by each of the 5 departments that were involved and scored based on their capabilities and the compatibility with the existing district systems. So to kind of explain what we as a district expected in these pilots and what we were looking for from the vendors or systems that were out there and available to the district, and we based it on 3 things. And one of those was the expansion of the safety that we would look forward to possibly in the future for the district. And those included the capability of locking all doors on all of our campuses. It also included monitoring all of the doors on all of our campuses and the ability to access these doors and to be able to secure them at a single location, all at one time. So we selected 3 high schools, and they were based on the complexity of the campus and the existing quantity of the existing card readers and panels that were at each campus. As mentioned, we assessed each pilot for these 24-month period, and the key elements of the evaluation included the ease of use, the scalability, reliability, and future-proofing of the system as we move forward. Pilot number 1 was conducted at James Madison High School. Pilot number 2, Legacy of Educational Excellence High School. And then pilot 3 was at Ronald Reagan High School. The criteria of the evaluation included technology, the integration with the current NEISD standards, usability, the ease of use, the educational support and administrative control, the maintenance and operations, which included support, software upgrade, and firmware patching. Also included company alignment, strategy, vision of the company, the overall stability of the company, and the solution's value. And finally, a criteria was the financial investment. Initial investment for the startup of the new system, and an annual maintenance to keep that system up to date and working within our standards. As mentioned, the evaluation team included, I said, the police department, maintenance, safety, network technology, construction management, and campus administration. A security technology scorecard was created and passed out to each member of this committee for their scoring on how they deemed the quality of each pilot at each campus met their expectation of them personally, not of the group, but each individual had a say on what they felt and how they rated each pilot at each campus. The results of those scoring in the technology, and I'm not going to give you the numbers, but those are available if requested. But in the technology criteria, pilot number 3 exceeded the other 2 pilots. The usability, the same result, pilot number 3. Maintenance, pilot number 3. Company alignment was also pilot 3, and the financial criteria was pilot number 3 was the winner of the 3. The overall score of all 3 pilots were as follows. Pilot number 1 received an overall score of 78.5. Pilot number 2 received a total score of 76.75. And then pilot 3 received a score of 103.75. And this was rated on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest that met our standards. So as a result of the scoring in the pilot program, I am here tonight that based on these, that we recommend that pilot number 3 is used for all future access control and expansion for the district. And the winner of the pilot number 3 is Genetech. And I'm able to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Okay. I do have one question. So is this, of course, technology changes overnight, but is this system something that, as our needs change, we can add on to? Is there room for growth, or will we max out of this? And I guess the question is is when did we purchase our last system? Like how many years did we get out of the first system?
Oh, it was, I don't know if anybody, Josue, do you have, of when the actual the current system was purchased was several years even before I was here as chief. So it's more than 8 years that we've used this system. But I can tell you that 5 years ago, we upgraded it to what we thought was going to meet our needs. Okay. And then as we continued to add panels, continued to add doors, and looking at what we wanted to do, the system kept failing, and we kept encountering issues that the manufacturer just could not solve for us and be able to move forward with what we wanted to do.
So is there growth within this program? Is it something that we can expand on? Do you?
Absolutely. That was one of the criteria is the expandability moving forward. And we actually met with each representative from each manufacturer, and that was one of the questions we asked. What is their roadmap moving forward? What are any limitations? What are their plans on expanding and growing with the needs of us as the district?
Thank you.
Got a couple there. So what is the total cost if we're going to do this across the district, or cost per campus? I know all campuses are different, but do we have a ballpark cost? Because this one looks like it's ESSER funds in the pilot. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It will be a phase 2. The phase 1 would be what we're seeking your approval for tonight is to convert all the pilot schools that are currently being piloted onto Genetech. So that would be taking pilot 1 and pilot 2 and move them all over. Because one thing we also did, as we continued with the 2015 bond, adding fencing, gates, and other card readers throughout the district, the current system, we couldn't expand or put any more panels or readers on that. So we actually put them on, we divided them up and put them on the 3 pilots to get a better feel of how it was going to perform, to help us make that decision which one would be best to move forward. And then phase 2 would be a district-wide conversion over a 1-year period.
Would that be bond money that we would use, or where would the funding source come from?
All this would be the ESSER 3.
So
funding.
ESSER would pay for the entire district, then every campus, not
That's
just
correct.
not just the pilot
That's
program
correct.
that we're looking at. And then the 5-year cost to maintain, is that going to come out of operations funds, the ongoing maintenance and funding? Is that how we're going to maintain these systems? There's a budget for that. Do you already have a current budget for continuing upgrades each year?
Good evening. Yes, that is actually included in what the current proposal is. So we would purchase the 5-year maintenance plan at the front end of the purchase.
That's part of the initial upfront cost to
That
cover
is
the,
correct.
okay. You mentioned scalability. In what way do you mean scalability? Because it can be taken a couple different ways.
It's mean as the ability to expand, be able to, this system, say for an example, we could put all of our cameras onto this system. And then we would be able to put door contacts on every single door that won't have a specific card reader to allow people to come in, but we could open up more doors onto our campus. And then at the end of a breach or a lockdown, we would be able to push a button and every single door on that campus would lock at a single moment instead of having to go around and do it each door one by one to lock it down.
Okay, because I did a quick look at Genetech, and they go from door access to like super sci-fi capabilities on their systems. Or we're just talking about basic door access and monitoring. Or are we talking about some of their other capabilities? Because I don't know if y'all had a chance to see them, but they can do a lot of stuff with their systems which go beyond.
And that will be a decision of the district moving forward of what other integrations or expansions that we want to add to the system as far as to safety and security.
Would y'all come back to the board for those approvals?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I mean, it's amazing what they can do, but sometimes it's almost a little bit Big Brother-ish.
Yes.
In some ways, it can get really out there. And then the future-proofing, what did you mean by that? I have an idea, but I don't.
We want future-proof of our schools, being able the ability to lock them down, monitor the door, see who's coming, not only having the card that swipe it, but then we also put the face with the card who's using it. So for an example, if I were to enter a door at one of our campus, when I swipe the badge, our picture of that badge holder would be present. That way we could look at the camera and make sure that the person that swiped the card is the person that owns that or is a representative of that card and not found the card laying around or something.
Like a double verification process.
Excellent.
Okay. All right, I'm just trying to understand all that stuff because this is obviously a big deal when we come to campus security, but also keeping the campuses open in that balancing act that we have to provide. So. Yeah, and then and there's a cyber piece too that because they get hacked in. That's actually a really good question. For the cyber piece, is there concerns because if someone gets in, it can lock all of our full door. I mean, they have good cybersecurity protections and protocols in place to make sure someone doesn't get a hacker doesn't get into our system and does something nefarious.
Yes, like I said, it met all the technology's requirements, and that's why we made sure that we included them in this process. Because they actually had their own criteria that they wanted to evaluate each company on, and that was part of it. So, we wanted to make sure that it was as secure as possible. And one of the things that this system also has the capability of doing is that we can upgrade our current readers to be more, these are very easily cloned or could be cloned. It's not very secure. And then that this system would actually be able to upgrade to a more secure card, an ID card and readers at each campus, for that extra layer of protection.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks for that idea about the cyber 2 piece. That was a good add-on as well. That's all my questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I had just a couple questions. The Genetech company, have we worked with them in the past?
Actually, Genetech is fairly new to the K through 12 industry, is because they were more of the bigger companies,
Right.
And they really didn't have anything that was affordable for K through 12. And actually, they actually created this program, special pricing and requirements for school district, just so they can be a competitor in our field. And that's how we came across the Genetech.
Was part of the process to look at any peer districts or any other like references, basically, to see how?
Yeah,
they work?
we had samples of what other school districts utilize, and actually several of the other districts use one or two of the other pilots that we also evaluated moving forward.
Okay. And then following up on the budget or the cost part of it, beyond the 5-year program, or I guess monthly maintenance program, whatever, does the long-term maintenance dollar-wise kind of compare to what we're doing now, or is it double, or is it half, or 30%? Do we know?
Actually, it'll be more, and the reason why I say that, because there really is no maintenance or upgrade with the current system. It is what it is, and it doesn't get any better. This one, the maintenance contract will make sure that we update the system, the firmware, all the readers, all the panels that are required to get the most current version to keep it running, because that's where we're running into the problem now. We can't have the updates of the firmware from our current system, and so we're having to continuously reboot the system and the panels to keep the cards working at each location.
So we are spending money every month. It's just not necessarily a designated
It's
maintenance fund.
more of a go out and assess and repair type thing, instead of just being able to go out there and use them.
Okay. That's all I have.
Well, he may make one more question, if you don't mind. Were there any red flags during the pilot program that y'all caught, like big stuff that was of a concern to any of the three, that y'all made sure there won't be vulnerabilities in the one we selected, or we want to select?
On one of the pilots, we actually shut it down. It just wasn't meeting our expectations, and they didn't have the capabilities to do what we wanted them to do. The other two, the Genetech and then the one that came in second place, we're neck and neck as far as compatibility and being able to, and user friendliness, but overwhelmingly Genetech met more of our needs moving forward, where the other system was a little lagging in a couple of areas. They weren't there quite yet. They said they would be, but they could really not give us a timetable of when they would be able to get to where Genetech already is, and then moving forward too.
Okay, but nothing to say we definitely don't want to use, in this case, Genetech. It sounds like the preferred one.
Correct.
No big red flags, just little concerns.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the transfer of the access control from the existing platform to Genetech?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, item G, consent. We had one matters from the floor, number
11.
Good evening. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. My name is Sandy Crocker, and I'd like to implore you to please say, do not sign the contract with the City of San Antonio, allowing the use of the NEISD facilities for the administration of antivirals, vaccines, and medications. In case you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I'm going to read this to you. sorry. The San Antonio Metropolitan Health District and the State of San Antonio are required to plan and prepare for a public health emergency that may result from natural or man-made causes. The planning process includes coordinating with other governmental entities. SAM, HD, and COSA request the interlocal agreement with Northeast ISD for coordinating during a public health emergency. NAISD will allow the use of district facilities during a health emergency to provide or administer antivirals, vaccines, and medication. Sorry, come on. And, sorry. Okay. It says the city will be solely responsible for compliance with any state orders or executive orders while using district facilities. COSA may request that NAISD assist in dispensing medications to district employees, students, and family members so long as it does not conflict with any statewide orders or executive orders of the governor. The city has shown over and over and over that they are more than willing to defy state orders. And, and they do so with impunity. And you guys are, the only thing standing between tyrannical government and our children. This is not your purview. Who at NAISD will be administering the shots? This is, build it and they will come. This is an invitation. This is a reservation for a red flag event. Oh, we have a medical emergency. They will not release our children. They're going to distribute vaccines. And right now there's this trend going on where parents are being notified that, such and such is going to take place, and we have to opt out of it. They're not asking for our consent anymore. We have to opt out of it. And if parents aren't aware, or if they say, oh, well, we didn't find it, we can't find that you opted out of it, this is very, very slippery slope. And as Dr. Maka, made very clear earlier, that the school board is not to mandate vaccines. Thank you.
Item 1, Instruction and Campus Administration. A, School Health Advisory Council SHAC member appointments update. 2, Business Services. A, Resolution approving sources of instruction relating to investment responsibilities. B, Broker-dealer authorization. C, Interlocal agreement between the City of San Antonio and Northeast Independent School District. D, Region 11 Education Service Center interlocal agreement. E, bid items. F, 50,000 purchases. 3, operations. A, easements for drainage, streets, utilities, and various right of entry agreement with San Antonio Water System, Ramick, parking lot, sewer line. B, professional services contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2015 bond program and M&O funded program. 4, minutes for September 2021. 5, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent?
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to pull item 1A and 2F.
Okay, 1A and 2F. Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am. Can I play item 2C, please?
Item 2C. Anybody else? Okay, do I have a motion to approve consent without 1A, 2C, and 2F?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Okay, David Byer, 1A.
Yes, I know this came to us at the last meeting, and I understood there might be some updates, but it looked like some people were crossed off the list and some people were added to the list. Were the people that were removed from the list, were they contacted? Why did they request to be removed, or did they not meet an attendance requirement, or what was the reasoning?
Mr. Byer, we had 2 people that were removed. One of them was because they withdrew from the school that they were at, so they withdrew from the district, and so they can't represent SHAC. And then the other family, they had moved out of the attendance zone from where they were going to be representing Shack.
Okay, so they were they didn't call and request, or they didn't, they
That is
just,
correct.
they don't go to the school there anymore.
That is
Okay.
correct.
And then I know that, I think there was a couple of missing spots open. Are the schools looking for people to fill those spots?
So we have, because of that spot at MacArthur that is open, we do have that space there. And so, again, board member can choose to do that, or the campus principal. And so we have this opportunity to bring it here to you all. If you had somebody in mind, could do that. If not, we would have the campus principal do that.
Yeah, not off the top of my head,
Okay.
I know the normal process is to let
Yes,
the
sir.
campuses kind of
Campus,
take care of
that's
that,
correct.
and then we come in if there's a need.
Yes,
so.
sir.
Okay, no, I don't have any other further comments.
Okay.
Can I had a question about the shack as well, if I add to that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to, had the same thing because of the last meeting, the clarity and some of the questions, and working with Dr. Micah to understand the process and policies, because it was my first year. I learned a couple of things that I thought was important. The individuals from my attendance zone did not no longer attend because I was trying to reach out to that individual. I was going to consider maybe leaving him on there, but he had moved out of the attendance zone. The other thing is, I realized we do not have a BDF local policy. We don't have written guidance on all this stuff. There's a lot of traditions and practices, but we as a board, which policy making is our big thing, we don't have a written guidance. There's a local regulation and then the legal, but I thought that's something that maybe we could consider going forward, is sitting down and laying out the requirements, especially with House Bill 1525 coming up, which I'll request as an agenda item here, that we just discuss what we want the process is, so it's codified, so we kind of know the order of campuses, length of service on there, and some of the other things. Because from my understanding, people just, once they're on the shack, a parent, they stay there until their kids are out of the school by practice, versus maybe looking at length of service, 2 years, 4 years, as new trustees come, because some parents could be on it for 10 or 12 years and go through multiple trustees possibly, versus maybe having consistent new voices and fresh voices representing the district. But open for discussion on that. But I just learned a couple different things going through this whole process that I think maybe would be good for us to develop a local policy, as we, especially with House Bill 1525. But I'll request that at the appropriate time. But I appreciate Dr. Micah helping give me those information and being able to get the name on there that I had requested. Thank you.
Item,
Do we need to vote on this one?
sure.
Move
Do I have a
to,
motion to approve consent 1A?
as updated.
As
So
updated.
moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. All right, Mr. Byer, 2F.
2C.
I mean, no, he was 2F.
Well, oh, yeah, we can do that real quick. There's a very quick one. There was one of the items on the 50,000 purchases was the Bear County interlocal agreement. Bear County interlocal, and it has a budget item for it, and I was just curious what that all includes, if we know. I assume we know, but if there's yeah, it just says department district-wide, vendor name, Bear County interlocal. 92
2.65 million.
in our, yeah.
Good evening. I can answer that question
Sure.
for you. It's just the interlocal agreement, a regular co-op that we're part of. And back in August, when we presented the list of all the over 50s, we forgot this one.
Got it. Okay, so it's just it's just a pool
another
for
option for us to
purchasing
purchase.
and okay,
Mhm.
okay. That's all I had.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's separate from the interlocal.
So do I have a motion to approve 2F, Mr. Byer?
Yes, I move to approve consent item 2F.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Okay, Mr. Hilliard, item 2C.
Thank you, Madam President. Reading through this interlocal agreement, to me, it's a big ask from the city of San Antonio. It's a 5-year agreement, and if I understood it right, it turns our schools into medical clinics and pharmacies during a defined natural emergency, public health emergency is declared. And we haven't really had a chance to get any more briefing details or share this with the community. I notice there's no deadline on this vote. This looks like it's a new agreement. Is that correct? If I understand. It's been a long meeting. I think we should consider tabling this and getting a briefing so we really understand what this looks like? Because this is a big deal when you start saying we're going to ask our staff possibly to hand out medications and stuff like that. If I've read this properly, this is concerning to me. I don't know how I would explain this to the constituents. How we explain this to the community with this going versus you've done the clinics in the beginning of the year, but this is mass campus-wide taking over the way this reads, if I understand it correctly.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is a renewal. We've had interlocals with the city for these type of emergencies. I mean, they'd have to entail like a huge emergency. I've been here 21 years, and we have agreements with the Red Cross and different organizations to open up for hurricanes and things of that type. I think Brian had looked up what potentially could be a mass emergency. Brian, did you have some examples?
Table it for later. I don't have a specific question to address here.
I moved to table until we get a briefing next regular meeting is what would be my move. I would request to move that to the next regular meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
For clarification.
Right, yeah, and it's not where they're asking us to, I know it's in the agreement, but it's up to us to either say yay or nay to open up, because there could be reasons why we don't open it up. They could be having basketball games, they could be having different things at whatever entities they ask for. They could request for us to provide them some nurses maybe, but it's not something that we have to do. It's not mandatory where we even have to. This is like to participate with them. Like I said, it's not something that we've had these interlocals with them before, and I think we showed it to our attorney, and that's why he put on there about that it doesn't go against the governor's mandates or any Texas state law. So it was just more of a community ask that the city and San Antonio Metro Health has asked for us to be able to use our facilities, but it's within our right to say no, and we don't have to open it up. They're just community centers to be able to give out in case there's like a radiation leak or there's some type of mass, I don't know, chemical warfare type of thing. It's like to the extreme, but yeah, I mean, if there's something in particular you want us to report on, we can get that information.
Did I read that? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, ma'am, go ahead.
Did I read that it was would only be if our campuses were closed? Like
that is correct.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we're not moving any kids out for, say, it's tomorrow at 10 o'clock. They called and say, can we use your facility? Sorry, we can't. We got school.
It's in number 2. The agreement will go into effect only if a public health emergency is declared and classes are either not scheduled or not canceled in the event the government entity is an independent school district.
Yes, ma'am. I saw that. I get concerned when I start seeing distribution of medications from our staff and some of the other things that are in here. But are you saying this is a renewal of agreement, or is this the first time agreement?
No, sir. This is a renewal.
Okay. Because I have concerns.
So specifically to the distribution of medications, if we were to get into a situation where, say, we open up one of our gymnasiums for whatever on a Saturday when school is not in session, the governmental entity gets to choose which employee or employees would be there. We wouldn't just send anyone in to distribute medications. Our school nurses already distribute medications on a daily basis. So, I would assume it would be the adequately trained professional who is already trained and allowed to distribute medications would be that person.
Okay. Yeah. No one else.
It talks about. Hang on, let me look for it.
I just have concerns if we were to do this that we're going beyond that. The focus, obviously, if there was an emergency, we would have the ability as a board to make an emergency decision saying, yes, let's sign this, or we'll agree this. And is this every school district has this across the city as well?
Yes, sir. They ask different LEAs to participate in their agreement. And it's not something, like I said, it's something that we've participated before as community members.
And actually, we were even asked, actually, Dr. Micah was asked why we didn't open our schools during Uri as a safe place for people to come that didn't have electricity and water and, and the answer to that was because we didn't have power. But now it's an open question. It's a conversation about, okay, assuring that high schools who have gymnasiums and bathrooms and showers do have power and water, if there's ever, God forbid, another storm, that we would be a place kind of like the same, under the same understanding.
I'm good with if we had a power outage, but this is now talking about medications and, talking about giving out to students and family members and distribution. That's a whole different set of conversations than making sure they have a safe, warm place, in my opinion, at least. And that's why I'm asking the question, because this creates concerns.
But see, Mr. Hilliard, I understand that. I truly do. But I don't believe that anybody is getting being administered medication unless they want to be. Like we all have rights. We all have the want to have medication or not have medication. It's our own right to say yes or no.
Yes.
And whether our campuses are utilized to facilitate the right for somebody to go in and say yes or no is what this is about. I don't believe it's about making sure that we have a hand in medicating people.
I'm not saying that necessarily the concern, but obviously we own the real property as the trustees, and just we're opening the door by signing or approving this. And that's my concern is, we're now opening all these campuses to be possibly utilized depending on how this is declared. And that was my concern because I'm trying to understand all this stuff. This is the first time I've seen something like this from the district.
Aside from voting, have we ever had our campuses used for any gathering?
Yes, we have, like I said, we have different agreements, like with Red Cross and different type of shelters to open up our shelters for either hurricanes or things of that type.
Yeah.
But in a mass scale medical emergency that I know of, no, we've never opened it up for any of that. We didn't even do that for COVID distribution.
And that's my concern is it's the medical piece, not just the opening up for like a hurricane. It just was very specific to medical only, it seemed like, versus a umbrella agreement. And that's where I guess my concern became, because the focus was on doing this, the minister, the AIM stuff, the antivirals, immunizations, and medications piece. It wasn't, we want to have access to your facilities to house people, do that, and possibly do medical treatment as needed. To me, this was a very specific one, medical only. And that's where I was raised the concern versus the broader concern of community members helping the community when they need it, because we do have big facilities.
And I do believe that we're not looking at, when you say mass, it's not, I don't believe that the focus of this is opening up all 70-plus campuses at the same time. This is one of the things that Health Services brought up. Like I said, even in our own critical incident response handbook, there's a section in there, what we do in turn if there's, radiation leakage. What if we have as materials pass by a school and it gets dumped? Some of the items that Health Services brought and said would be applicable here would be a localized I can't even say the word, meningitis outbreak, or heaven forbid bioterrorism and a school gets known anthrax. So then if the entire school was exposed, then on a day where school is not in session, do we open up a portion of a campus and we know the kids are not there? So the only time a child would receive the medication is if the parent brought the child to the campus.
Sure. No, I appreciate the conversation, the perspective. That's what I'm trying to understand because it was very specific, not broad, and that's new to this stuff. So,
one thing that was mentioned that might be more widespread is, heaven forbid, they're planning for SAWS water contamination. And then there's treatments that they have in place that and the reason why they say schools is because we are known locations, correct.
I get that piece of it, okay.
And we're safe locations.
Yes, and actually in the campus instruction, there's when I was at Bradley, I was on that committee, I was vice president, we had an emergency plan. And it was, okay, what do you do if there is an emergency at Coker? And it was I think it was in there, it was like a flood or some sort of a leak or gas leak. How they would get the kids from Coker to Bradley, and Bradley would end up being that place where families could come pick up kids and where they'd meet and they knew they were safe. And so I understand, but yes, it's all coming back to me now. We are utilizing our campuses not just for our own children, but for our community because, you know, that's a crazy, when things happen, did we ever plan to be in this pandemic? Did we ever plan for that storm we had for Uri? We never planned for any of it. We have to prepare. We truly have to prepare. I'm a planner.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I had a couple questions, though. It said that COSA may request that any ISD assist in dispensing medications. So we could always turn them down if it was something we could not or would not do.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, this isn't forcing us to open or to provide anybody or any resources. It's just a interlocal in case there is something that happens and they give us a call, hey, you know, it's over here by your schools, can we use X school? Or if it happens in the south side, they're gonna call South San or Southwest or South Side to open up that particular school or area. Or if it's citywide, of course, they'll be asking for different areas.
Well, and I think of when we did provide shelter at Littleton Gym during the hurricane.
Yes.
And there was medical care going on there because so many of the people that were coming in.
They didn't have their medication,
were
so.
extremely medically frail.
We had a bunch of our, I guess, community members went in and tried to get people.
I think it was Baptist Health, maybe, that it was.
And then all our nurses, of course, helped man the site. But yeah, they brought those individuals that were lacking their medication, so they had to go around and try to find out. And
yeah, our staff
it
was amazing during that. God,
that was awesome.
Yeah.
okay, so, do you want to make a motion regarding
I'll
item?
I'll move to approve G2C, the interlocal agreement. G2C.
Okay, do I have a sec? You move to approve it?
I move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 11, reports. A, interim financial and management reports, and B, awarded bid report. Those have been provided for you. Item 12, discussion and possible action regarding board members' request for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for reports from the administration. Do I have a board member requesting?
Yes, ma'am. I move for an agenda item to discuss and develop a BDF local board policy. The BDF local, which is showed it. Yes, ma'am. I can say that slower if I need to as well. I move for an agenda item to discuss and develop a BDF local board policy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries. One, yeah. Item 13, adjournment, and the time is 9:40.